General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, collective bargaining, the firefighters contract. And I, Chair, declare to not go into executive session. Might hurt our further bargaining issues. Upon our completion of executive session business, we will return to open session. I so move.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Moffat, aye.
Patterson, aye.
Flynn, aye. Moran, aye.
Jones, aye.
Hi, I'm Pat Thatcher.
And I'm Margaret Gifford. We're from Sotheby's International Realty.
I was taking some home buyers on a tour the other week, one of my familiarization tours of Falmouth. Brother, this is a gorgeous town we live in.
And we have more shoreline than any other town on the Cape. The gardens have been beautiful, the light is stunning, and the changing seasons bring exquisite color to the marshes.
It is a beautiful place to live.
We are so lucky.
Nestled in a classic New England setting amid 200-year-old elm trees and charming colonial homes, stately sea captains' homes, and charming Cape Cod salt boxes, Shoreway Acres is a graceful blend of Cape Cod's past and present. Shoreway Acres, proud sponsor of Falmouth Community Television.
2016 Falmouth Board of Selectmen meeting. The board has just returned from executive session, during which time we were able to approve the firefighters' contract, following their vote, successful vote last Tuesday, signing the contract. So we're thrilled to have had that taken care of. I will invite you all to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, under our proclamations, we actually have two different proclamations from the Falmouth Historical Society Heritage Award. Mrs. Flynn?
Yes. The town of Falmouth honors Captain Thomas Bushy in recognition of your contributions to Falmouth and for being awarded the 17th Annual Falmouth Historical Society Heritage Award, given for your enduring commitment to maritime heritage, education, and ecological awareness. Your contributions to our town and community have made it a better place for all of us, given this 13th day of April 2016 by the Falmouth Board of Selectmen. And I move the proclamation.
A motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. The ayes have it. Mr. Patterson?
Yes. I'd like to read this certificate of recognition from the town of Falmouth to honor the TG family in recognition of your contributions to Falmouth and for being awarded the 17th Annual Falmouth Historic Society Heritage Award, given for your enduring commitment to maritime heritage, education, and ecological awareness. Your contributions to our town and community have made it a better place for all of us. And it's dated the 13th day of April 2016, signed by Doug Jones, Chairman, Sue Moran, Vice Chairman, Mary Pat Flynn, Rebecca Moffett, and Samuel Patterson.
I move the proclamation.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none.
And
Mrs.
who
Flynn, your
might be
comment?
there on that evening to present these? You think you, or? you
On
think
this is
about
on
it?
April 13th, right?
Yeah, a
Yeah.
couple weeks away.
We do expect
Just
to be
think
there.
about it.
Yep. Next is an announcement of the Lighted Up Blue Autism Awareness Month on Cape Cod. And if you remember, this is an event that happened last year, and they're distributing blue lights to municipalities and certain buildings across town. And if we approve of so, they will do so here at Town Hall and some other buildings also.
I move that we approve it.
Second.
Okay, motion and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. I believe the bulbs have already been distributed to us, so we can go ahead and do that.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to emphasize that we're focusing on Town Hall fundamentally, as I think it's symbolic of selectmen in the town as a whole, as opposed to buildings throughout the town. We're focusing here as we did last year. That's our intention.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Point of order?
Yes.
I think we need to vote.
Light it up blue?
Yeah, didn't?
Yeah.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Next item is public comment. Is anyone who'd like to speak on something that's not on our agenda? You may do so at this time. Please limit to your comments to 2 minutes. All right, and then we have our minutes of the meetings. We don't have the minutes for the March 21st meetings to be able to approve, so we'll move past that and move on to our summary of actions under licenses. First is a special one-day all alcoholic liquor license at the West Falmouth Library for Saturday, April 9th, 2016, for an event from 5:45 to 8 o'clock called a Movable Feast.
I move approval.
Second.
Motion is second. Any questions or comments? All
I'll
those in
just say it's a great fundraiser. It's going to go toward the expansion of the library that they've been working on for quite a while. I think there's still tickets left, and it's really a wonderful event.
Any other comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. The ayes have it. Next are administrative orders. We have two. The first is approve an easement to widen the intersection of White's Landing Road and Route 28 East Falmouth. This is part of the continuing project, and this is I believe is a temporary easement for the construction. And this is what we've been working on since last year when we got the plans, then reconfigured through state permission. Yep.
I have a question. This is a temporary easement. Now, is this until all the construction is completed, or will this be folded into some type of a new roadway?
My understanding is it's temporary and a permanent portion as well.
Okay.
Right.
I don't know if,
Oh,
yeah,
yes.
Peter McConerty is with us, perhaps he can come up to the mic and make a few comments, Mr. Chairman?
Maybe you would just describe the two different easements that we're going to be looking at.
Yes, good evening, Peter McConerty, Deputy Director of Public Works. There's two easements on White's Landing Road that we're looking for. We're trying to, with the reconstruction of the boat ramp at the bottom of the roadway, we're trying to make it more, for the recreation boaters to be able to get their boats in and out of, from Route 28. And one of the permanent easements is that corner of the Marine and also Route 28. It's a triangular lot right now, we're taking a triangular shape. So the larger boats and the larger vehicles will be able to pull down that road, and when they're coming out, they'll be able to take that road and pull out to the right to be able to go east on Route 28. Some larger boats that go down there and make that corner, and in order to do that, we had to request an easement from Mr. Lee.
And that's from Bosun's, that's the owner of Bosun's Marine.
Correct, yeah. Yeah. And there's a lot, it's a large project, that's a small portion of it, but that's the work that will be, once that takes place, that's the work we'll take care of during the summer months, and then in the fall, we'll start the full project when the boating season is over.
And the elimination of that corner is the permanent easement. The
Yes.
construction easement is what we need to be able to do to get down actually to work on the,
To do the work on the lower end.
on the
of
landing
road.
itself.
Yep.
So it's actually two different easements that we're approving, both the temporary and the permanent.
I move approval.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. The ayes have it. Looking for your signatures, please. The second is to authorize the town manager to expend $12,500 from Article 17, this is the April 2011 town meeting, to fund a portion of sediment aeration pilot project to be conducted jointly by the Division of Marine and Environmental Services, MBL researchers Dr. Ken Foreman and Dr. Ann Giblin, and the Water Quality Management Committee. And this is a project, I think the whole total cost would be $50,000, but the only actual cost to the town will be the $12,500 from Article 17. I'm not sure if we have anyone here to discuss or describe more. Certainly in the packet we have, it describes fairly well as to what the aeration can do to the black muck that's found in a bunch of our coastal ponds and estuaries. And this is a chance to find out really if we can move some of this sediment that has no value at all, unless we can stir it up a little bit and be able to move it along.
I think it certainly goes with the kind of multi-pronged efforts that we're doing all across our estuaries to try to see what works most efficiently to improve our water. So I think it's a great project.
Any other comments? Mr. Patterson?
We're struggling to get our shellfish to recover, and this represents decaying matter that consumes oxygen and drops the oxygen level down to the point where shellfish can't survive. They're suffocating. So I think any efforts we can make to do experiments like this to see if there's a way of getting this muck to further decay, perhaps to disperse, to get rid of this, they call it eutrophication environment, will help, shellfish recover and make our estuaries a little bit more habitable for both flora and fauna.
Otherwise known as muck, black muck.
Yeah.
Right.
But I think, too, it will be good because there's so much of it around in the water, so we can figure out how to do it in this area, can apply it elsewhere. So, it's a
I
good
move
project.
approval.
Second.
Motion and second to approve. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. The ayes have it. Next is a special event, beach wedding ceremony. This is for Jessica Tebbets at Old Silver Beach on Saturday, June 4th, the public site only. It is scheduled as a 15-minute ceremony. We're arriving at 4 o'clock, about 15 vehicles.
Move approval.
Second.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ms. Moffett, a comment before the vote?
Oh, excuse me,
Yes.
we're finished with the vote? I would like to talk about Don Hoffer's requests on the three, whether we need to have that discussion at this time, but the three weddings that are suggested that are coming up and looking at votes for those, or just let that go to special events.
I think those will be coming, either they'll be taken care of on their own, or they'll be coming to us in future discussion.
I didn't know whether he's looking for some direction from this board.
I don't believe he is.
Okay.
The meeting, the special events is meeting on April 7th, so at our next meeting, April 11th, we hope to be able to have that to
Well,
discuss.
he
it.
wasn't going to be there on the 7th, so I guess he was giving us all this information, and if we wanted to have a discussion, but that's fine. Okay.
All right, so we already voted on the templates. I'll pass this along for signatures. Next item on our agenda is the public hearing, which we are not scheduled till 7:45, so we'll move on to our business. This is to, Moran had suggested that we each take responsibility or have each of the articles, which we think there's likely to be discussion on, assigned to different ones of us to be able to present our points of view, or at least why we may have presented the different articles. And so if we take a look at the town meeting articles briefing document that Mr. Suso's prepared for us, I think that pretty much covers the articles that we might very well have coming before us. You also do have the packet with all the town articles, all the town meeting articles, and it is unlikely that any of the articles 1 through 5 will warrant selectmen having to make a presentation on.
I think also, this is a kind of widely encompassing list. A lot of the financial articles, I think, will probably be handled by the finance director or the staff, but certainly some of the less solely financial articles, I think might really benefit from an introduction by selectmen who have a particular interest in those articles. So I don't know that, I think this is,
I'm happy, I actually would like to go through each one that Mr. Suso put in it, and we can say, no, we don't need it, or yes, I'll do it, or,
Great.
and so if there's a particular one, there's some that, as chair, I think I may very well want to step forward and say, I need to present that one.
I was
Or
thinking
you
that.
may tell me I need to, and that's fine also.
I've assigned you most everything.
Oh, great. Article 6, there's a cleanup article on the signs for the town zoning bylaw, and I'm not sure we need to have them prepared for that.
Well-
If the question arises, Mr. Patterson says he'll take it on.
Well, I don't mind doing the homework, but, I mean, I noticed that the planning board voted indefinite postponement, so if we really want to see this move forward, somebody has to make a positive motion and get up and speak for it.
I actually thought they were going to be, I think that was their printed motion, but I actually believe that there is going to be, they will be making a positive motion.
Oh, they will, okay.
Yeah, I think there was some little detail they had to correct, and so
Okay, good.
I think we're okay with that one.
That'll be great.
Good, yeah, good to hear.
Article 7 is dealing with the continuing and facilitating the existing shellfish propagation program.
I'd be happy to take that.
Okay.
If you
But
like.
isn't it just to set up a revolving fund for that purpose, and I would think Jennifer would be the person to justify setting up a revolving fund, and similarly,
Well, it's even maintaining the revolving fund, right? Don't we already have one?
Not according to this.
Not
I don't,
okay.
yeah,
for
it
this
says
purpose.
authorizing revolving fund. so-
Okay.
Right.
You're accepting the revolving fund, okay.
So I would think she could speak to that, and then maybe the funding of it would be something, if needed, you could be prepared to step up, but I would assume that Jennifer can
A
handle
lot
it.
of people have questions about what is the program, so
Okay.
I don't mind dealing with that part.
Good.
But as far as the financial aspect, I agree with you.
Article 9 has to do with the pilot program for the solar array.
Happy to pitch in on that one too, given the EDIC and, role in that.
Article 10 is the public access to a section of waterfront property. This is actually finishing something from, I think about 60 or 70 years ago that needed to get cleaned up.
Right, it was not properly recorded.
Right.
I'd be happy to answer any questions on that too, as I was involved in moving that along at the beginning.
Okay.
Not that long ago, but the recent beginning.
Okay. Article 11, I would probably either pass on to Ms. Harper or Mr. Suso.
Yep.
I think that should be fairly straightforward, but I
Or,
don't think...
or perhaps Peter McConerty
Right.
speaking for him. This is the sidewalks from Courier Road.
Article 12 is create 2 new staff positions, one in water and one in wastewater. And I think actually Mr. Jack will play the best one, too.
Or Amy Lowell.
Right.
We can handle that.
Article 13 is increasing the hourly pay of selected temporary seasonal employees. We're trying to get them, even though they don't have to go up to state minimum wage because it's a town wage. It's something we're putting forward.
Denise Coleman can handle that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Article 14 is the proposed operating budget. Certainly, there'll be a extensive presentation both from Mr. Suso and Ms. Petit, and I don't know if we want to try to break it down into light items. I think that may be more, but
Confusing.
I do think that if there are specific questions and where they may come in would be on the fireworks is one. I think if we can just be prepared to, if it seems that one of us has defended positions more often, to just be rotating that through in a way that I think we're all familiar with what the budget's saying, but I don't think it really involves much homework or preparation on our part to be able to.
Makes
pass that along.
sense.
Yeah.
I might add that the Finance Committee had a team that has gone through this line by line.
Oh, yeah.
And they should be prepared to step up and actually defend their recommendation to the Finance Committee. So there is some backup there, some people that have literally talked with department chairs or the appropriate people who this budget item or the appropriate budget item would apply to.
Article 15 is putting the money into our general stabilization fund as we voted within our policy. I don't think it necessarily we're going to need our defense of that. Same thing with Article 16 and Article 17.
It just continues.
And 18.
And 18.
Policy
And
of the
19.
board. So each year,
That's right.
put money in the stabilization fund. So it doesn't hurt to remind town meeting that this is a continuing appropriation.
Now, is
At least with this board.
Is Article 19 going to require an amendment to increase the amount? Or is that Article 4 in the special, that's Article 4 in the special town meeting, right, okay.
Right.
But I think,
Well-
is it 19 the funding of all the cost of living?
Right,
Yes, you're right.
Cost of living for FY17
Percent,
for
right.
town employees.
So wouldn't that be Jennifer to speak to that,
Yep.
really?
Right.
Yep.
It's just, it's a budget item where she has a reserve for settling contracts like you just settled.
Okay, and I will take Article 20 on the Spring Bars Road project.
Okay.
I'd be happy to speak to that myself.
Okay,
All right.
all right, Sam, why don't you do that?
Okay.
Because I think you've been heavily involved in that also. I think the CPC articles, they'll be dealing with their own. Article 24 is the synthetic marijuana regulation article.
I don't mind speaking to that one if
Okay.
you want to put my name on it.
Great.
I think that the Board of Health, like Jed Goldstone, will speak to it as well, I'm sure.
And then we have the petition articles. And on Article 25, which is the Busby, I'm happy to describe whatever we vote tonight and just let them know what we've decided. Article 26 is Mr. Swag's request for the change on the widening of Bourne's Pond. And I think the Water Quality Manager will actually be taking that lead on that one.
Yes, I would agree.
Article 27 is the petition to remove impediments to the wind turbine operation. And we've been voting indefinite postponement on that. If it comes as a positive motion,
I'll do that.
okay. And Article 28 is to engage consolidated contract law firm in place of the town council.
I love talking about law firms.
I
so
would think
I'll be
you were the
able to do
appropriate
that.
person.
Okay, and then a special town meeting, we have annual budget transfers and unpaid bills. Article 4 is dealing with the money needed for the collective bargaining agreement for the firefighters union. And that, I think, actually, Mr. Suso or Denise be able to defend that would be appropriate. Article 5 is the discussion of the $300,000 to move forward on the design, and that's something that Mr. Vieira and I will be taking care of. And similar to Article 6 and 7, I don't think it's all one package. Of course, a little bit also based on our vote tonight. Article 8 is $500,000 to Stabilization Fund, best explained by Jennifer, because I can't even pronounce it. Article 9 is moving our documents into provide electronic storage.
And that's just in the building department, Mr. Chairman, that's ongoing.
Yep.
That's just continuing it.
Yeah, but I mean, if you wanted somebody to speak to it, I mean, given the public records laws that have been changing and the need for us to be able to retrieve some of these documents efficiently. I mean,
We'll
I
put Sam for
think-
that.
I don't mind if you need somebody to back that up with a
Thank you.
supporting statement.
Article 10 is additional funding to move forward on putting the new parking meters. I think that's actually going to come more from Chief Dunn than from us, or Mr. So you can. Our 12 is the irrigation, and Article 11 is the irrigation system, and between the staff and me, we'll take care of that one. Repairing the town-owned bulkhead at Robbins Road. Especially when
Well, I think that's probably best defended by the harbor master
okay.
Or the Waterways Committee.
or the waterways.
Maybe
It's
the-
from the Waterways Fund, it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Article 13 is funding for the Little Pond Oyster Propagation Program for additional 2 years.
Happy to do that.
Okay. And again, we're just trying to be prepared in case questions do arise, that we can have someone
Yep.
to point out and say, hey, you were supposed to be ready for that. Article 14 is the fund establishment of town aquaculture management plan.
I can put that in as well.
Busy.
Pardon?
Busy.
Well, it's all water.
And Article 15, consulting services for a flood hazard mitigation program.
I'm happy to back that one up.
Okay. And consulting services for the town website development.
That might be best described by staff. I know there are a lot of questions about the cost, and I think that's,
Happy to do that.
Okay.
Wait to introduce.
This is just
Val.
consulting contract through a standard state procurement to allow us to do this, so.
It'd be an opportunity to introduce Valerie O'Connor to the town
Absolutely.
meeting.
And then the others are the CPC articles. At this time, why don't we also talk about the upcoming precinct meetings? Try to make sure we have some kind of coverage at those. And I was trying to make sure I had the agenda. I know that on Wednesday night, we have precincts 1 through 3 at Morse Pond, and I will be at that meeting. But I believe tomorrow night, we have 2 different groups, right?
Tuesday night is, well,
Here it is,
Tuesday
Doug.
night is 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, that's what I have.
Pond. I was
Okay.
planning to go to that.
Tomorrow night's 1 to, I'm glad we checked this,
Yeah.
okay?
And Wednesday night is.
So
precinct-
Tuesday, March 29th is precincts 1 through 3 at the Morse Pond School.
Right.
Wednesday, we have 2 different meetings, precincts 4 and 7 together at East Falmouth,
And 8 and 9.
and 8 and 9 at the Barnstable County. Is there anyone who can make it
I'll
to?
go East Val.
4 and 7.
So
I'll do 4 and 7.
Patton and Becky are going to do 4 and 7,
Then I'll do 8 and 9.
and 8 and 9,
Okay.
and Sam and Sue.
Whichever you'd like me to go to, it doesn't matter to me. Comfortable with either.
I usually go to 8 and 9 also, so I'll plan to go 8 and 9, and Sam, you go to wherever you want.
I'll join you at 8 and 9. How's that?
And
And Sue, you
then
can go to East Falmouth. It's close to you.
on Thursday is 5 and 6 at the West Falmouth Library at 7 o'clock.
I'll be there.
I'll be there.
All right, that's right,
I'll
Patton,
be
so
here
there.
at 4, so.
On tomorrow night, is there anyone who could, I was hoping to go, as the representative of the planning board, go to the planning board meeting, so if there's anyone who could,
I can go.
could you go to that, Pat? That'd be great. All right. Well, we still are hearing at 7:45, so we'll move on to our next item, which is a presentation from Mr. McCarty. Get his 2 pieces of business done early and get him home on the compost facility operations recommendation plan.
Good evening, Peter McConerty, Deputy Director of Public Works. This item for the compost facility, I think as everyone remembers, has been brought up at the town meeting back in November, and it was decided to go through the winter months to look at more of a better view of how we could look at the compost facility as a whole. Over the winter months, I was able to work with the Solid Waste Advisory Committee, there's many of them in the audience tonight, to look at an operations plan that will basically take Falmouth into the future with the compost facility and basically keep it from year after year, working in perpetuity, so it will never find a life limit that would have to be looking at another facility. So working with the Waste Advisory Committee, what we had looked at is different items that I would like to put into place. I just wanted to give you an overview of the compost facility. Before I do that, what I would like to say is, not that the changes that we're requesting to make is drastic, but this being the end of March and we're going into the April timeframe, contractors are going to start they've already got their clients already set up and they're already going to be working into the spring cleanups. So in order to offset that, we would like to see if we could request to maybe put this into place July 1st, the beginning of the fiscal year. At that way, it's basically the beginning of the fiscal year for us. The contractors basically get into the burnout season for the summertime. There's not a lot of cleanup going on. And then in the fall time, when they start back up again in the September or October, that's when this will be in place.
And so the idea would be the springtime could be a time to inform them this is about to happen, as
Correct.
opposed to
Correct.
they show up tomorrow and
Correct.
they can't get there.
Right. So right now, the facility is open 5 days. It's open from Tuesday through Saturday. It's open from 8:15 to 3:30 in the afternoon, as it always has been. So as we know, we have some issues up there that we need to take care of. The facility, this is what we're looking at to see if we can do the July 1st time frame. I think it would work out well for all. So the compost facility, it's 95 acres. You can see the red line basically surrounding Blacksmith Shop Road is Blacksmith Shop Road follows up along this side, follows all the way down alongside of where the conservation land is, the Bry Vogel land, comes back, cuts up, comes all the way down to the residential houses in the back, comes back up to Blacksmith Shop Road. As you can see, it's about 80% wooded. There's about 6.5 acres there that's for the compost facility. And the compost, our operation is this area right in here. That's our operational area. Okay. Oh, I know. Okay. So the compost facility, it's a total site area, 95 plus acres, as we said. The area for the compost recycling area is about 6.5 acres. The site is regulated under Mass DEP. In the early years, the town of Falmouth was using the site as a composting area, but as they started getting closer and closer and DEP went through their changes, in 2000 they issued the town with a permit to use that for the compost. It's basically used for its leaves and grass. So once again, to keep the site open for year after year after year, continuing, the material entering the site has to equal the material exiting the site. Everything that comes in has to exit what goes out. So what's happening is there's so much material coming into the site at this time, it's too much material for us to be able to process, to be able to bulk process and set into windrows for the town. And that's the point where we're at right now. And Public Works is required to fill out an annual compost report. February 15th of every year, we're required to fill out a report. And basically in the report, it asks you for the limits of the materials going into the site. The report specifically states a quantity that can be allowed at the site, and it has to keep on revolving, and how your operations are taking care of those.
Well, the stuff that's going in right now, are people pretty good about only bringing leaves and grass? Or does brush end up entering into it also?
There is brush in there. For the most part, the leaves and the grass does come in. The problem is we don't have a staff person up there regularly for a daily, to be up there daily, so to be able to see the material coming in. But for the most part, I mean, some of the material coming out might be covered over, or they might cover something over the bottom of the truck. But for the most part, it's leaves and grass, and we can compost it. You might get a few violations, but it's not too bad.
Okay.
So this is our composting area, and basically, I want to apologize for that little HP, that little on the side corner over there. That's just something that popped up on the screen. It's not part of my presentation. But basically, the compost facility has 7 steps. So what happens is the vehicles, they'll come in off of Blacksmith Shop Road. That's step 1. They come through the facility and they come down this road right here. They come into step 2. They back up into this leaf drop-off area. They drop off their leaves, or the trucks back up, they pull the lever, and the leaves come into this drop-off area. At that point in time, and then they leave the site. At that point in time, we have our front-end loaders and trucks that come in and scoop this material up, bring it out over to this section of the material. Can't really see it right there, but that's about 25 feet deep. A lot of it's full right now, but you can see the lines in there. That's material should actually already be processed and taken out of there. But, so our equipment will take this material, bring it over and put it in this hole, and then we'll come down with our trucks, load it and store it there, get it ready for these windrows. We'll come down with our trucks, which is step 3, put the material in the trucks and then bring it down and form these 5 or 6 windrows down in this lower pit. And then we routinely turn them. They try to turn them every 2, 3, 4 weeks to keep the heat up in it. Keep the heat up, get it 180, 190 degrees. It keeps the, it'll get all the ingredient inside it all heated up, and it'll basically break all the material down into the compost that you're looking for. For the most part, it works very well when we can get our resources up there. What had happened is Public Works, over the past decade or so, what we've done, we've taken on so many other things in town between the private roads and the drainage systems. We've taken on so many more tasks and so many more things that Public Works is doing. We haven't been able to put all the resources up here that we need to put. We don't actually at this time have the equipment to be able to come in and do what's proper up here to keep this amount of material processing. The site was never really made for this amount of material. It was made for residents of Falmouth to be able to come in and drop off on weekends or weeks. So that's step 3. They bring it down the windrows. Step 4, step 5 is they turn the windrows, and then step 6 is they process the material. We usually get a contractor every year that comes in, processes the material. It's a low budget that we work with. For the most part, the contractor takes the product. He'll take like 60% of the product, and he leaves us the amount of the product that we use for our residents. They stockpile in this area over here. They have a tumbling machine or a screening machine that comes in and processes the material. They take theirs, we take ours, and we bring it up into this area here or another area, and we keep on reloading it as the residents come in and want to use it. And then this is the step 7 over here is another area, but this area right here is a little small breakdown area where the trucks can come up and take it. So these are the types of vehicles that we're looking at seeing come into the site. You get the amount of vehicles, the numbers underneath the vehicles. These are the amounts. We did some random checks up there, and what happened is we found 4 hours on one day, 3 hours on another day. These are the vehicles that we found coming into the site. So it was about 100, during our process we did about 2 days in 4 different sections. So we had 169 vehicles. They were about a quarter a yard to a half a yard. We had 129 pickup trucks. They're about 1 to 1.5 yards. And then these are the guys here that we're looking at, is the 1-ton dump bodies that are 2 or 3 yards. They come in, they just come up to the site and they pull the lever, and then a big block comes out. And a lot of times you'll see a truck like this, they have plywood sides on it. They come in, just a big block drops out, and then they drive off the site. It's a lot of material when you break that down. And then you have the stake body truck on this side. It's basically the same as this, it's a bigger. And then you have today a lot of the contractors, medium-sized contractors, largest contractors, they're buying these truck vacuum units here, and what happens is they mount it to the back of the truck, it sticks into the back of the truck right there, and they just blow these leaves in, they make it into a big pile, they blow these leaves in, and they just pack that truck. It comes out I mean, it minces it down to maybe quarter the size of the leaves, and it just comes out as a big block, and it's a lot of material coming in. So these are the trucks that we're looking at right here, is the 1-ton dump bodies, the stake bodies, and the larger utility bodies. These are just photos showing the windrows. These are our trucks. These are the machines coming and loading the trucks. It's not a fire or anything in that site. What that is, that's just the heat of the compost coming up in the material that they're processing. And this is the process when we bring our contractor in. This is the conveyor belt. This is the process that they bring it in. They put it through this screener in the tumbler, dump it in. It comes up, comes out, and this is the material that comes out. And then they take that away, or they bring it up to the top of the site for us.
And the fairly frequent turning also prevents issues with the heat getting too hot.
Getting too hot.
And creating fires, right?
Yeah, yeah. And you, like I say, you want to keep that hot too. Right now, the material that it's up there, we just had a contractor coming in. He's working up there now. The material's down to about 80 degrees, 85 degrees, and that's pretty much, it's ready to go when it drops like that. So the engineering office goes over there monthly, or bi-monthly, and well, as much as they can, usually monthly, and we have a long thermometer. We go up and we climb up inside the piles and we stick it in and take a temperature of it to see what the temperature range is. So what we'd like to do is come up with a recommendation to see if we could do 4 things with working with the Solid Waste Advisory Committee. It was a positive vote to come up with these 4 items. So we'd like to exclude out-of-town vehicles. We know we're getting Sandwich, we know we're getting Mashpee, we know we're getting Bourne, in some other towns. So we want to be able to exclude those town vehicles. We want to put in place a Falmouth identification of vehicles, and it doesn't have to be an elaborate system, but we know there's a lot of material coming into the facility, but we don't know exactly where it's coming from. We know there's a lot coming in, but how many Falmouth residents are actually using the facility? So that's something we could look at. There's different ways to do it, and it could be used of existing stickers. It could be used of little small placards that could put onto a windshield. It's not really a cost thing. It's just a tracking system for us to be able to know where the material is, that it's in Falmouth, and that we know that it's coming from Falmouth, and we'll be able to track how much is coming in.
Would the standard dump sticker serve in that capacity for people?
It could be a dump sticker, combination sticker, beach sticker, as long as it's seen. So what we'll do is in the first few months is usually when it comes out, we'd be able to put a employee up there at the gate as much as possible, during the busiest times of the day to be able to watch that. And it's basically at this time is going to be the honor system for right now. And I do think we'll be able to get it under control in a short period of time. Limit the size of the trucks of the facility. What we're looking at is the vehicles and the pickup trucks. Don't really have a big problem with the vehicles and the pickup trucks. Most people in Falmouth, if they're doing cleaning up yards, they have pickup trucks. It's the 1-tons and it's the dump bodies. Those are the ones that are frequent flyers that are coming in all day long, and it's the landscapers.
Where would those people go then?
So there's other facilities. There's a facility across the street. There's a facility up in Bourne. There's other facilities that they would be able to put in, and that's why we're asking to kind of push this out to maybe July, so the contractors can, there's a facility in East Falmouth, so the contractors can be able to get their ducks in a row and work with their clients.
Okay.
And reduce the number of the days of facility. Like I say, right now it's open 5 days a week. We'd like to see if we can reduce it down to 3 days a week, a Tuesday, a Thursday, and a Saturday. It would work out great. On the weekends, you'd get the residents. The Tuesdays and Thursdays, you'd be able to get the people throughout the town. So it would be requesting to cut out a Wednesday and a Friday. And it would help on our side for our employee-wise. We'd be able to get in there and be able to process the material. And basically, that's the presentation. I know you have a 7:45 hearing. Basically, what it is the amount of material that's up there right now. We're at the limit of our permit. So we need to do something. Knowing that it's only grass and it's only leaves, it's a lot of material up there right now. And we're looking at removing this material from the site, either by process or just removing the leaves, and then be able to make some more areas up there and rearrange the facility to be able to maybe put another set of windrows up there and ease our operations up there. But that's basically, as a whole, the presentation. I would imagine there might be some people from the solid waste that want to go up in the advisory committee to be able to talk about that. But that's what we'd be looking to, that's what we'd be requesting.
I just want to add as well that Peter and I did a listening session at the Chamber of Commerce along with the Solid Waste Advisory Committee, and had an opportunity to really flesh out some of these issues, got a little bit of community input, and just really an opportunity to do some outreach for what exactly would work based on various composting ideas, and I think it went really well, and the presentation was well received.
It was well received, and FCTV was there, and I believe it's been aired on FCTV, so, the word is out there, the contractors, the word is out there that we're looking to do something with the
That was
compost
like about
system.
6 weeks ago or something?
It was actually March 2nd, so
Okay.
it was the beginning of the month.
Okay, great.
When you looked at the vehicles coming in, was there also a distinction between on Saturday, that you had more residents, and during the week you had more of the contractors and larger trucks?
What we've seen is basically, yes, some of the contractors that we talked to too, they said that they don't want to go up there on the weekends because it can be chaotic at times. There's cars that's pulling into the dumping, and other cars turning around, and other people, dumping this and driving on the facility. So it can be chaotic at them. So they'll either hold their load or they'll go to another place.
And that's where, if you're going to do 3 days, I would almost suggest Wednesday, Saturday, and Sunday, even though I know you're going to have an employee there.
Yeah.
On Sunday, that might be more expensive. I think the residents that we're talking about are the ones who are going to be doing it on the weekend more
Yeah.
often than going to be able to do it during the week.
Yep.
And to either have the Sunday to drop your stuff off or pick up the 2 barrels full of compost that you want to use.
Yep.
Well, I'm afraid we've made things inconvenient, that we're going to have to table this discussion until after our hearing, and then we'll hear from people from the audience.
If you don't mind, I'll just turn this off for now, and I'll keep it up and just.
Can you just lift the screen up? There's a plan underneath there.
Great, thank you.
So we have a public hearing at 7:45 under Chapter 207 of the Code of Falmouth. Falmouth Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing under Chapter 207 of the Code of Falmouth on Monday, March 28th, 2016 at 7:45 in the Selectmen's Meeting Room, Falmouth Town Hall, and the request of the Falmouth Youth Baseball to use town-owned property for construction of new batting cages and additional parking. The affected property is a portion of town-owned land between the baseball facility and Gifford Street, and shown on an assessor's map as 35-06-008-002. Interested parties may review the file on the hearing at the Selectman's office. Dates of publication, Friday, March 18th, and Friday, March 25th in the Falmouth Enterprise. Copies of this notice were sent to all abutters. Do we have someone on behalf of the Falmouth Youth Baseball? Yeah, can you introduce yourself, please? And
Good evening. I'm Thomas Hawkins. I'm the president of Falmouth Youth Baseball. When we started this whole project, I actually wasn't even involved in the organization. I believe before, I've been involved about 4 years, but 3 years on the board, and this all started with a grant that we got from the Falmouth Road Race, I believe 5 years ago. And we've kind of been going through the process here. In the packet that we gave you, I think you see the environmental study. That was a big thing that had to be done. We've had the site plan done by BSS to show basically what we want to do is extend towards Gifford Street a little bit from our current parking lot. We do have sort of a makeshift batting cage currently down at the fields. If anybody ever drives down there, you'll see it. It's chain link fence. It's kind of galvanized. It's galvanized. It's had its time. It's time to come down. One of the other things too with how that batting cage was built, it was, when I played Little League, I was never as big as my coach. Now I coach, and the 12-year-olds tower over me. They're 6 feet tall. Things have changed. Even Little League, they're increasing the base pass, so we need them a little longer. We need them a little wider.
It's so scary in there.
That's kind of where we're going to bring it into the future. We want it to last. The batting cages that we're looking at putting in are actually, the posts are constructed from the same material that the Alaska Pipeline's made from. And we were trying to beat Barnstable to the punch, but they got theirs in just before us. They put the same system in. So they put a 2-cage system in, so we have 3 fields. We want to put 3 in, so each team can use it. And then when we're not using it, they're up there too for the kids to use. You know, my stepdaughter's starting to play softball, so the softball girls can go over there and start to use it too. It's basically what we're looking for. A lot of people have donated money and time and willing to put into this, and we just want to make sure that the kids have it. Everything that we do at these fields, of course, is a gift to the town. So any capital improvement that we make, yes, we manage the facility, but it's the town. So if we put up a new scoreboard, the town of Falmouth has a new scoreboard. We put a new pitcher's mound out there, the town of Falmouth has a new pitcher's mound. Yes, ma'am?
I first of all want to recognize and commend all of the volunteers, because I certainly know how much time it takes to put such a project together, all the, bringing the grants together, all of the, the studies that you have to do, the permitting issues. I just have a question about any kind of maintenance issues. How would maintenance of the facility be handled going forward?
So, like, if there needed to be a repair to the cage, Falmouth Youth Baseball would take care of it.
And do you have a separate fund set aside, or 501c3, or how does that work?
Well, we are a nonprofit, but we do, so if we need to fix things in the field, that's kind of built in as part of the registration. So registration fees are usually cover umpires, balls, our electric bill for the lights, field maintenance, things like that. So we know that there's going to be a little bit of upkeep every year, like putting new yellow safety topping around the galvanized fence for the outfield, that kind of stuff. Also, if we ever have big projects, if we really need a fix right away, we usually try and have some sort of fundraiser. This year alone, we partnered with Steve Sishak, who's a local Falmouth graduate. He's an MLB player, actually just got signed to Seattle. And we worked with him, the Major League Players Baseball Players Association, and also the Falmouth High School team, the Booster Club. So we put a fundraiser on a wiffle ball tournament when we raised money, Falmouth Youth Baseball and the Boosters Club split it. So it's kind of, we're a real community-based team.
Ms. Harper, if you could at least go a little bit in the memorandum of understanding we have with the baseball.
A little bit of background. A couple of things. About 4 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, we drafted a comprehensive memorandum of understanding with Falmouth Youth Baseball that covers all of those types of issues: indemnification, liability, insurance policies, who's responsible for what. That really was the finalization of a over 30-year informal arrangement where Falmouth Youth Baseball did provide the town with those amenities on the property, but there was no formal arrangement for that. So we did do that. The board at the time the MOU was approved, this concept was presented to the selectmen. The selectmen at the time indicated conceptual support for advancing the concept of expanding the parking area and relocating the batting cages. This hearing is an important step to allow Falmouth Youth Baseball and the town to proceed to do that, because the parcel that this particular expansion is located on is a separate parcel from the area that the MOU exists on. So this is considered a change in use in town property. So the parcel that they're creeping onto, I'm not sure if you can see the parcel lines on that map or not.
Sure.
Our current parking lot is right here. So for a good example would be where you are right now. And then where that parking lot ends, up to Gifford Street, is a wooded area, which would be, Gifford Street would be the start of the chairs here. And we only want to go into that wooded area enough to be able to fit the 50 by 70 structure. And then the only reason, if we're going in this way, then we're gonna, just open it up here, and just knock it down. That is the goal. I mean, we have one tree at the field down here. We'd like to keep as many trees as we can. So we're not looking to go in there and clear a lot and throw up a skyscraper or anything like that. So
Just to follow along on that, So following this hearing, if the board's inclined, you could do a couple of things. One, you could endorse the project to proceed, subject to a plan approved by the town engineer and the town planner, and then that plan would be prepared, and we bring it back, and you would amend the MOU to include a physical area that represents the plan approved for this project. So this is kind of step two. There is a conceptual approval. This is a very important required public hearing, and then there needs to be authority of the town to do that. I know they're eager to move forward, have been working on it for some time, but these processes are, relate to public land, and you've got to go through the required notifications.
Also, sorry, sir.
If you could just remind me, and I'm not sure whether Ms. Harper is talking as we both to do so, just because the use of town land for soccer fields has come up, what's the public access to these fields? I assume when you have games scheduled, that's going to take precedent. What about when you guys don't have games scheduled?
When we don't have games scheduled, anybody will call us and ask us if they can, like if they want to have an event. The Cape Codders, the old softball team, they usually like to have their home run derby here. If anybody ever calls to have an event, if somebody wants to have a baseball function, they have it at our field.
Or if your daughter wants to go and play?
If she wants to go, I mean, the fields are open. We do ask that, the dog, you're not having dogs go run out there. During the season, so we do have the liability insurance. We took out our own policy as being the tenants of the field. We do have that.
But they're not fenced off and gated off?
Well, the fields are, and they always have been, except for Field 3. You can still get in there. But yes, that has always been that way. This is not going to be a gated, closed area. This is a wide open area with just nets.
Okay.
And the nets will be pulled back in the winter. So the batting cage will be an open area.
I think I interrupted what you were going to say.
I was just going to say, we also, we're not all, know all the processes correctly. I know a bit before we kind of jumped the hoop, we went back and we got full support from the Recreation Department also. We've also been there. I enclosed those minutes in there where they approved us. We even had some volunteers at that meeting that were willing to help us out.
Ms. Moffett?
I'd like for you to do a timeline, because your season is going to be starting, I would say, within a month or so.
April 29th is opening night.
Okay, all right. And the fact that you're asking us at this point that we have this to approve of the 3, is it 3 cages or
Yes.
just 1?
3.
It's 3. And so in your mind, when do you think you're going to see those cages installed?
Hopefully before I leave the program.
Now, what am I going to do with that?
Well, it's just, some
Not
of the
this
process
season.
is new to a lot of us, so I figured once we, hopefully get the approval to use this land, then I think that there's a permitting process that we're gonna have to go through. And then, yes, we do have money set aside, but also some of the contractors that were willing to do work for us, this was 4 or 5 years ago, their kids are now graduating high school. So I'm gonna have to go back and try and solicit. I think I have a pretty good guy that can do all the site work for me with excavators and stuff like that. I think I can. Hamilton Tree, I'm not, just throwing, they're a sponsor of ours, maybe they're willing to clear some trees. I'll go there. It all depends on the permitting process and how fast. The goal was hopefully to have it done before opening day.
Yeah.
I don't know if we can get that ordered, put in here, and a permit approved to go do it. If you told me that I could go start this next week, I would have people in there next week doing it.
Okay.
But if we can't, like I said, hopefully we can have it all ironed out, that either the construction's done in the middle of the summer or we have another light winter like we did, and when their businesses are slow, they can come in and do the work. For me, it would be that as soon as possible without affecting the safety there during the season. That's, of course, safety.
Just to finish, one more question.
Yes, ma'am.
When it is the height of your season, you have 3 teams that are playing. How many people approximately are on that piece of property?
Well, you would have 6 teams with 11 players on each team, so that's 66, and let's say 2 parents each, 132, and then maybe some brothers and sisters.
And you have adequate parking, or you have to use a little of Gifford Street?
A little bit, you can't see it down here, but they'll park, like when the soccer fields get overflowed, there's some turnouts down here by
Okay.
the power lines and the easement, some people will park there.
Okay.
We'll park here. What the biggest thing about this expanded parking is, in case, and you've hit the nail on the head, is you'll see, even though there's signs that say no parking, what scares me the most is this access here off of Gifford Street. If you get people parked along the side of that, now I'm worried about when I do need to get that ambulance in there, where it is. So this would alleviate that, you know, maybe it would allow us to put up a guardrail or something there to,
Okay.
you know, and I think this even calls maybe to widen that entrance if we're clearing some of this too, so we can get there. That's a big thing. I mean, I'm active duty Coast Guard, so stuff like that,
Okay.
emergency services is big for me, so.
If you could please be quiet in the
Thank
audience. Have you seen the memo from the staff engineer on some of the issues about the parking?
I have not.
Okay, and I don't think they're issues that we need to deal with, because those would certainly come forward before the plan. Just dealing with the number of required ADA spots and van appropriate spots. And, you know, if you increase the number of spots, it can't just be regular spots, it has to be.
You have to have so many handicap.
Right.
Yeah, we did. We built a new Coast Guard station in Newport Beach in California, and I had a temporary trailer for an office, and I had to have a handicap spell, so.
And also concerned about with increased parking spaces, where the runoff, the
Right.
increased
I
runoff.
know
are
the
gonna-
plan for, the parking is not gonna be a paved parking, to not have to really deal with the drainage, it'd be more of a crushed stone, so that it would just go, it would almost be existing, it would drain right to where it's at. I
But-
do know that.
But the batting cage will be paved, right?
The batting cage, I don't think at this time that we're gonna have the money to put a hard cement floor and then padded turf over it, so what we'll probably put in there, the plan now is to put a base, like an infield dirt. So that will absorb some water, and then it'll run into the offsuit, which will be the graded, not the dense grade, but will be the crushed stone. So again, drainage still will be in the area.
Okay. The difficulty with that plan is that if ultimately the idea is to have it be impervious, the plans now are gonna have to be, well, you have to be prepared for the runoff, because you'll never be able to put the runoff system in
Right.
in the after effect, so. it just-
And I'm willing to let all the engineers and
Right.
suit that, but again, like, it's kind of been so we have this plan, hopefully we're good with it, we can move forward, and then now, you know, if we need to address that drainage issue now, if those thousands of dollars of plan adjustments come up, we can go ahead and spend that that was during the permitting process, at least that was my take.
Any other questions from the board? Is there anyone here in the audience who'd like to speak on behalf of this project? Anyone who would like to speak against the project or has questions that they'd like to have answered before we close the hearing?
Motion to close the hearing.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to close the hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. So the hearing's closed. We'll now deliberate and let you know what we decide. Comments? Discussion?
Well, I assume the next step is to produce a memorandum of understanding at this point?
The next step actually is for us to approve it, and then they create an engineered plan.
Okay.
Then once that plan's, then we would also create a memorandum of understanding and be able to allow this use of the property. But it doesn't have to go back to town meeting for use of the change of use of property, does it?
No, I think if the board votes to authorize the town to review a plan, subject to the town engineer and the town planner's approval, and then with that approved plan, we'd bring it back to the board as an amendment to the MOU.
So moved.
Further discussion? Ms. Flynn?
Well, no, I'm
Second.
going to second the motion, but I think the motion should include the suggestions that Heather made.
So the
That
motion,
would be reviewed by the town planner, the town engineer.
Oh, yeah.
They submit a plan that's reviewed, because it's, it fits with what's already there.
Right.
And these are volunteer groups that work with these kids, and, it's a great thing, and it's that little piece that sits right on Gifford Street that's been sitting vacant like that, and I think it's a good use of the property.
so the motion is to send this to our engineering department and have a plan created in conjunction with Falmouth
Yeah,
Baseball.
no, that's what I intended.
And
It
the
was
engineer.
basically the scenario that Heather mapped out. I didn't want to have to repeat it because I'm not sure I would remember it all. But I think it's important that all those steps be included in the motion.
And ultimately come back to us for a memorandum of understanding.
Yeah, and I also want to be clear of the expectations. I think the expectation is that Falmouth Youth Baseball will produce a plan for our engineering department to approve, that if you ask our engineering department to produce the plan, it might take a lot longer. So I think with the approval of the board, Falmouth Youth Baseball has the incentive it needs to create a plan that meets the standards of the town, and we'll bring it back to the board as soon as that's complete.
Are we clear on our motion?
Yes.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? The ayes have it.
Great, congrats. Great job.
And thank you for all the
Thank you.
work that you do with young people.
Okay, the next question is on the senior site consultant, what kind of questions we might have before we to lead us as to where we might be heading. Ms. Harper, do you want to lead us off with this, or
Well, I have
you have some information?
a little bit of material I'm happy to walk through if the board is
I would be-
inclined.
We shouldn't finish Pew first.
Oh, you're right, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We should finish the compost facility operations. I apologize. So, back to the podium, Mr. McConerty.
If you don't mind, I'll throw this back up there again.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. So are you ready for questions from us now?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So I think what I'll do is, I'll bring it back just to the recycling area.
Or do you have the recommendations all together?
There's one page that just had the, that would be great to see that. You may just wait for the projector to heat up again.
While he's doing that,
Yep.
I wasn't going to say this earlier, but the more I think about it, when I was working in Plymouth, as you may know, they don't have trash pickup, curbside. And there's, 66,000 people who live there. So there are 3 transfer stations. So everybody has to take their trash to a transfer station. So there's a camera. And when you drive into the transfer station, it takes a picture of your license plate. And that's how they control it. And I don't know how expensive that is, but I know with even with the trash pickup, all of that, it's something that maybe could be considered if there are now 2 areas that require a person to be there to just check people in. It might be better, it might be more effective to have something like that. Some of the technology that would, then you can go back and look at it and see who's there, who goes
There's no
through and
power
who
there.
doesn't.
There's no power, he looked into that.
Oh, you already looked into that? There's
Yeah,
no power?
so actually, the members of the solid waste department, they took a big stance, and they got a company and got an estimate, met with the company, I let them speak on that, but we looked at the roadway, and about 1,200 to 1,400 feet each way, there's no utility poles, so there's no power in the area at this time.
Solar.
So
Give me a big solar
that's a
panel.
drawback.
Questions from the board?
It was a good idea.
Yeah.
Ms. Muffin?
I would just say that as I looked at each one of the recommendations, I see a reason for each one of those. And I also understand the fact that it's commercial dumping. And I don't think anything that is ever offered to any town or to anyone that has no cost isn't somewhere going to be used incorrectly. And I think that's the issue that you have. The other thing is the fact that you do not have someone to be there, I mean, up to
At the
this
gate.
point.
Yep.
And what is being offered should be just for the residents of Falmouth.
Correct.
And there needs to be a way to identify that. Maybe they get zapped or something.
So yeah, when the permit was created, it was created for the residents of Falmouth. It specifically says the residents of Falmouth in it. That's what it was for. And I think over the years, the site was unoccupied, and other towns, contractors from other towns saw it, and,
Word spreads fast.
it spreads fast. So,
So really, the first recommendation, you don't need us to say, that's already within our permit.
to exclude out-of-town vehicles.
Right.
Yeah.
And then-
And by ways of doing that, we could just put a couple of ads in some of the other the enterprises on the other towns and saying Falmouth is no longer accepting.
And then we have this
materials.
process for implementing how we know.
Yeah,
And whether it's a sticker or even you have your registration, if your car's registered in Falmouth,
it's registered in Falmouth.
it's registered in Falmouth, and that's a Falmouth vehicle.
Yep.
Even if they're not voters or anything, but they've registered their cars here, that would be one way of saying, can I see your registration? Say, yep, you're a Falmouth car.
Now, they could do it by registration. I'm not sure how that works out at the gate. I don't know about, asking for the registrations at the gate, and we can check further into that. But an identification system is definitely, is needed to see make sure that they're from Falmouth.
Yeah.
With the amount of material.
And that takes another employee.
Yeah, yes.
And
Right now, what we have is, we have an employee from the waste management facility. He splits his time during the day. He goes between the facility and the compost facility. He goes back and forth with the front end loader, and he flips the piles or he moves the piles as necessary.
But wouldn't be available to be at the entrance.
Well, what we'd try to do is we'd work to have somebody at the gate as much as we could in the first so many months. And I've already talked with other departments in town that they might be able to help out too, to have other people up there too, so.
So the idea of the training might actually make enough, once you've trained people to understand this is who it's for,
Yeah.
then it will become less of a problem with other people coming in.
Yeah, I think a few trucks being turned away for one of the contractors, time is money, gas, the fuel. I think it'll take a couple of times on that, and the contractor's gonna say, all right, so it's time to go to another facility, and I think that's what we're looking for.
I think the
Up
2
and
days a
down.
week is also a good idea. Then you don't have as many times to be up there to check on it.
Cut down the 2 days a week, yeah,
mhm.
yeah. It has been brought up to Sunday operations too. Currently, right now, they're not open on Sundays, so that would be a little bit more work we'd have to look into, but that's already been brought up too, have Saturday and Sunday open, and one day during the week, maybe a Wednesday. That would just be something we'd have to look into, but
Is anyone from
I
the,
agree.
anyone from the public like to comment on this, or from the Solid Waste Advisory Committee? Any other questions from the board? Mr. Finneran, I asked if,
Mark Finneran, Precinct 6, Solid Waste Advisory Committee. As most of you are aware, this whole conversation was a result of the town meeting article that myself and Mr. Schneider put in. And at town meeting, it was resolved that the town would work together with the Solid Waste Advisory Committee and come up with an idea. We did talk about it for several meetings, but what you see here is basically the idea that came from the DPW in the first 15 minutes of our first meeting. We did discuss it all, go around in a big circle, but kind of like rabbit hunting, we're back at the same hole again. Mr. Schneider and I interviewed had salesmen from a couple of different companies come. The better one that we found was slightly more expensive than the first one by Stanley. And for $34,000, they can put a gate that works on the same type of barcode sticker that they have at the dump. There's also an option to a lease, and you'd own it outright after 5 years for $900 a month.
Excuse me, Mark, did that include, is that assuming there's power there, or?
Well, you can, the power is a problem, but it's not a great problem. As it stands now anyway, the gate that is there is opened by Ernie before he goes and opens the waste management facility in the morning, and then in the end he closes it in the afternoon. In the interim, when he went and opened the gate in the morning, he could just start up a generator and it would run it more. That only takes 15 amps. They are giving us extra solar panels with the waste management, the capping of the old landfill. One panel is more than accurate to run this, more than adequate to run this thing. Our car counts in the busy season showed 200 billable vehicles a day at $10 a vehicle, which is less than half what they charge across the street. You're talking about bringing in a couple of grand a day during the busy time. I mean, it really could be quite a large amount of money that we could make here. The machine and the setup comes with a spreadsheet. It comes with cameras that would view the gate, take pictures of the vehicle, and it would also overlook the facility itself, so we would be able to monitor anybody that was in there dumping brush, fences, and a lot of rocks and stuff that has lessened that product over the last couple of years. I mean, $34,000, no matter how you pay for it, is cheaper than a man, and it would ensure that there would be someone monitoring the place all day. And what we have here really isn't management. It's a reduction of services to the people in this town. As far as the permit goes, the permit states that it's for residents of Falmouth, but further on in the permit, it says that it is for residential/commercial traffic. So anybody who is in business in this town has a right to use the facility by the permit, and we have the right to charge them. The reason we have this problem is because we don't charge, and every other town around us does. As I've stated before, there's a golf course in Sandwich that has a dedicated vehicle that brings all their grass clippings to Falmouth, and we're getting used that way. If there's no one there to monitor the gate, or if there's only someone there half the time, it's only going to take care of half the problem. I think that our solution is very low cost. It also leaves the option for the town to actually make money, just like other towns do in their facilities. And it really, I don't think it's, could be considered a management option. And I'd just like to add that we sent the salesman from Tyco and Stanley down to the waste management facility to see how it operated there, because we see a great potential to use this in other places. The waste management facility itself, and also the parking at Old Silver Beach across the street especially would be a great place for one of these gates. But when I went over to the waste management facility to see if the person from Stanley had in fact come over and spoken with the guys there, there was a truck going out with a dumpster full of metal. We've again changed our metal vendor. The guy stopped and gave the guys at the gate at the dump.
Could we please stay on the topic of the...
It is the topic. It's management of our facilities.
No, it isn't. This is the compost facility only.
Yes, it is. What are you afraid of? I'm
Nothing.
just trying to tell you what I experienced.
Right,
We're Solid Waste Advisory Committee. We're supposed to give you advice.
Okay,
It
Mr.
seems
Bennett,
like it's
we're
not
talking about the
wanted.
compost facility. If you're making a report from the Solid Waste Advisory Committee, I'm happy to hear that report from the chair. But right now, we're talking about the compost facility.
This is also my town meeting article.
It doesn't make a difference. It's not your article.
Does. That's why it's here.
It's not your article. It's a recommendation from our deputy director and from the Solid Waste Advisory Committee. I'd like to stay on the topic of the compost
All right,
facility.
well, I think I pretty much stated it all. I mean, for $34,000, you can manage this place properly. I mean, this isn't really management. As I've said, it's just a reduction in services to the people of this town, and I think there's a better way.
Okay.
And there's several other of us who are in agreement there.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Brazier, are you representing the chair of the...
Yes, I'm co-chair of Ruth Brazier, Precinct 5, and also co-chair of the Solid Waste Advisory Committee. We really haven't explored all the implications of this, of making money at this facility in the committee. What we did agree on and we voted unanimously in favor of supporting the DPW to start with these recommendations.
Great.
The idea of having the facility open on Sunday afternoon was suggested by one member of the committee, but we had no committee discussion on that subject. And of course, we've also discussed at much more length having the waste management facility open on Sunday afternoons, so that would have to be part of any discussion about opening this facility on Sunday afternoons. Mr. Finneran and Mr. Snyder have done a lot of research on the gate and so on, but we really haven't voted or fully discussed these options in the committee. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I follow up on that?
Yes.
Mark Finneran again. What we actually voted on was to do these for April, and we voted to look at something further in the fall, just so it's not quite exactly as it was quoted there.
Okay, any other comment? Okay. So we've had our presentation. Would the board like to have any further discussion or make any vote on supporting the recommendations of the deputy director?
I'd like to move that we support the recommendations as set forth, 1, 2, 3, and 4.
To begin July 1st?
Exactly.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion?
Well, I would say this isn't going to cost us anything. These four, changes, if you will. In fact, perhaps it even reduces a little bit of the activity at the current compost facility. So I don't see this as anything that's going to hurt us. It'll give us a chance to see how effective it is in beginning to curtail the commercial vehicles from out of town from coming and using these facilities. So I think it's worth a try.
If there's an identification of the Falmouth vehicles, that may incur some kind of, whether it's an index card size that they can pick up for free from town hall saying, yep, I have a Falmouth town car, I want to use the compost facility. I don't think there's an idea of charging for that card, but somehow creating that, and there may be a minimal cost to create that card or sticker. Ms. Poppin?
I didn't know if we had decided that it was going from 5 to 2 or 5 to 3, but we were basically thinking about just leaving it at 3 and not reducing it just to...
leaving it to...
Just leaving it 3, okay.
Right.
My thought wasn't changing it from 3 to 2, but which 3 it was.
Okay.
Mr. McCartney had suggested it might be 2 days during the week and Saturday, and I was just suggesting another thing to consider would be 1 day during the week and the 2 days of the weekend.
Yes.
Doing everything we can to make it convenient for the residents.
Okay.
One of my major concerns in hearing Mr. McCartney is by having the commercial, whether they are Falmouth commercial or outside of Falmouth, is the amount of material that's going in has reached its limit. And if we don't do something to limit the commercial ones going in, whether they're Falmouth or not, we're going to be in violation of our permit.
Okay. With the point being that they can't get that, they can't remove as much as has been brought in.
Yep.
Well, I'd like to defer to our town managers, but I think if we tried to start Sunday services, we'd be incurring overtime costs. That's certainly not currently in our budget, not anticipated. So I'm not ready to push that at this point until we have somebody take a look at what it might cost us.
I agree.
Okay.
Well, I was going to leave that up to others to decide, because if it's 5 to 3, we're not saying which days. So.
Okay.
Exactly, that's why I made the motion broadly.
Okay, all right.
Any further discussion?
Just a question, just that, do the contracts have any language about weekends or overtime or not? And just the number of hours per week, you know?
The contracts that
DPW
we
contracts.
work by,
Mhm.
it's the number of hours per week,
week.
and the weekend days do have a factor in it, if it would be a Saturday or Sunday.
They have a
that's it.
factor in, but it's not overtime. Or if you work, regardless, I mean, if you work 2 other days a week and then you work 2 days on the weekend and you're within 5 days a week, but
Yeah.
2 of them are weekends, is there some kind of additional compensation for the weekend?
We'd have to look into that. I don't know if the town manager might have some more. I think that,
Just in general, that is the case, that if you work Saturday or Sunday, you're in premium time,
Premium
but
time.
it may vary slightly by the individual contract, we'd have to double check.
Yeah.
But in general, that's, our experience is that's the case.
yeah.
Okay.
So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, the ayes have it.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Peter.
Leave that on, Peter.
Back to the senior center site. Ms. Harper?
Thank you.
We don't have any information on senior center.
There we go.
This is how many inches?
Stapled.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah. I had the same question.
it's stapled.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, very good, now we do.
So I offer to walk you through sort of where you've been, some of the decision points, as well as, go home, and to talk a little bit about what steps you need to take in order to move the project forward. One, I want to apologize in advance here. I'm working with material that is prepared by others, and it's not in a format that I'm generally comfortable using, so I'm going to be moving between a couple of different presentation styles, and it may take a minute or two, but I felt it was important for you to see the original material. And first of all, I just want to recognize that the Council on Aging is here today. Jim is here, and Jonathan Bishop are here for this discussion. And just to mention, I think when Joel Bardman, the consultant who did the site feasibility for you, initiated our conversation on how to site a senior center, one of his original presentation, I think even when we interviewed him, we cautioned that these are very difficult decisions for communities to make. They sometimes, require measuring twice and cutting once, and the decision for siting senior centers is very complicated. And that was reinforced this winter when I attended a workshop at the Mass Municipal Association, and the mayor of Salem was speaking about their siting of their senior center that took them several years to come to a site conclusion. So it's really not uncommon, and there was a room full of people at the time that really affirmed and concluded, yes, it's very challenging for communities to make decisions on these very important, large community service facilities. So I understand the real pressure that the board's under to make a wise and decision for the town for a new facility, expanded facility. I just wanted to walk you through a little bit of where you've been. Of course, the feasibility study was completed. We received the final report in December. The board actually heard a presentation in October, which resulted in your decision and recommendation to select the high school site as your preferred site. I'd like to note the project team, and I think it's important to recognize that we had a pretty thorough group of professionals evaluating the sites, an architect, a cost consultant, Daedalus Projects Incorporated. Daedalus is a very well-known cost estimator, used very commonly in the industry by general contractors, by architects to help them identify costs in the marketplace based on what regional projects and cost of materials have been for similar types of work. Civil engineer, coastal engineering company, as well as you well know, traffic engineer and additional consulting engineering, so there was a pretty thorough group involved in that. This is where we'll jump around a little bit, and I apologize for that. I'm going to take you down to this is an image that demonstrates the sites that were included in phase 1. And these were the sites that the board solicited proposals to have the town evaluate following the working group's process last year. The Board of Selectmen identified 5 separate locations to be pursued for a phase 1 analysis. That's the high school property, the Brick Kiln Road site, the Ticket School Administration Building, and the Gus Canty Community Center. And on any of those sites, in some cases, there are multiple potential locations on those sites. The phase 1 study discarded the Brick Kiln Road site because of some existing limitations in terms of the acquisition. It's an open space property and would not be able to be used for that, and would have required the use of the PAL site, which is now actively used for another purpose. So that site was concluded as not feasible. And the board did a full analysis of those sites and received a presentation on that, multiple, as you know, presentations to the community. And then you went to a phase 2 process. These are the phase 2 sites, and you may recall in one of your early presentations that Joel Bardman recommended that phase 2 be limited to 2 sites, that you narrow that study down because you really needed to be able to focus your energy and attention on 2 sites. And the board determined that it would evaluate 3 sites and 4 different options. So there was a pretty thorough evaluation of multiple options. The high school being 1 and the school administration being 2. On the high school property, you took a look at the Gifford Street Extension site and the Brick Kiln Road site, and at the T-Ticket School Administration, you evaluated the T-Ticket School as a reuse with an addition, as well as a freestanding site. Just to demonstrate, back to the high school site, this demonstrates the 2 sites that were evaluated. The area generally of the lacrosse fields and the tennis courts was one area. There are multiple options considered and presented to the town for use of that Gifford Street Extension area. And then to the bottom of the screen, the Brick Kiln Road site, which is essentially the site of the varsity soccer field. During this phase 2 evaluation, we provided an opportunity for the school department to meet with coastal engineering, the engineer assigned to this property, to walk the property and better understand exactly what the school's athletic programming needs were. And we've been very clear all along from the management standpoint not to allow our judgment about what the school's needs are to replace the school's judgment about what their needs were. And so we invited them to meet with coastal engineering to identify an area where they might recommend relocating a field, whether it be a varsity lacrosse field or a varsity soccer field. There were 2 fields in play on the high school property. In fact, we'll talk a little bit more about fields in a minute. They did identify a location to the back of the high school as a feasible location for siting a replacement field. And we were careful to make sure that the school department was comfortable that the replacement of an existing field, the replacement field did not impact the future of a potential multi-purpose field. So this is not the area that a multi-purpose field might be located. This is a new location that would simply replace an existing amenity with an in-kind amenity. Athletic field. There were multiple conceptual options, as you remember, considered at the high school. And again, that's the same. additional options at the high school. So there was a tremendous amount of effort and energy looking at alternatives on the high school site. And then the other site was the school administration. And the school administration property, I'm sorry, I'm not sure where the feedback is coming from. There were two different looks at the school administration site. A separate structure on the T-Ticket school, the T-Ticket school administration site. This was one option looked at that was advanced to phase 2. The other alternative at the school administration building was, an addition to the existing structure. So this demonstrates that there could be an addition placed on that site utilizing the school administration building. Of course, we learned as we worked with the school department that they felt they had very limited ability to compress their use of that facility. They felt that their programming really demanded continued use of that building. So it really looked at, the town needed to continue to look at constructing a new facility on this site. I'm going to go back a little bit. Again, this is where it gets very awkward. Slides 14. In the phase 1, Mr. Bartman did demonstrate a couple of different options for locating a freestanding facility on the school administration site. See, that's the site in general. To the right was an alternative showing a new structure that would meet the programming needs of the senior center on the T-Ticket administration site with a parking area adjacent as well as access onto Sandwich Road. And these are two other options. The one on the left, of course, is the addition that was demonstrated later in phase 2, as well as another option that would have a freestanding senior center. I just wanted to walk back to remind you where you've been in terms of the selection process. And we'll walk to phase 2. From that phase 2 analysis, in addition to some of the civil engineering and the site planning, was the cost estimate, which was performed based on the quantities provided by the architect and the engineering firm, as evaluated at this very, very high level site feasibility cost estimating. They really don't even call them cost estimate, they're opinions of probable cost, which is generally what you might expect a structure of this size in these locations to cost in a range, and it demonstrates both construction cost and total project cost. You see in the cost ranges, these are presented in order of cost, with the school administration 1 as a standalone includes field replacement with a range of 8.8 to 9.5 for total. Now the field on that property, as you know, is a softball field. It is not a school field, it is a recreation field, but there is a softball facility. Every one of the final sites invokes a field. Fields are going to be an issue that you'll address wherever you look at siting if you focus on these final sites. The Gifford Street extension, which is the varsity soccer area, includes replacement of that field. It's the next highest range, almost equivalent at 9.0 to 9.5. The Brick Hill Road site, which is the lacrosse facility. Excuse me?
The other way around.
Oh, I'm sorry, did I reverse that? Gifford Street extension is lacrosse, I'm sorry, yes, at 9.0 to 9.5. I believe that was really relative to its location to the wastewater facility, was the difference in cost. Brick Hill Road, of course, is a soccer facility. And then school administration 2 is the renovation, including a field replacement at the highest cost range from 10.9 to 11.3. So that's the cost range that came through from the December 31 report that was received by BH Plus A. I do want to just note in this cost estimate performed by Bayless, based on a site meeting with the school administration and then their own estimate of cost to replace the field in kind. You can't read this, you can't be expected to read it. It is in your reports. I did not make copies for you, but you'll all have a copy of that final report. They provided an estimate range from $75,000 to $100,000 to construct a new field on the high school property, depending on the amenities. So this was received December 31st on January 6th in preparation for town meeting. And to advance the project, we convened a meeting of the technical staff along with the school administration, and we really probed them, as we continually do, to have them demonstrate for us what the programming needs of the varsity field programs are. We learned that the field that was designed here was simply a replacement turf field with a gravel access drive that could support one gator up and down. We really pressed the school administration to provide us their program, what their full field program was, and give us an idea of cost so that we could appropriately ask for those funds at town meeting so that we could represent the board appropriately and indicate that we were seeking something that would keep the school whole, as they have continually asked us to do. And of course resulted in the request for funds for design. The board appropriated those, the school matched that, and they engaged CDM Design. The CDM is the same firm that did the cost estimating and design for the multi-purpose field. They know the high school site very well, and they came back with a design. Like this. That is that same location, and what it includes is, you see the small parking area behind the high school. That area exists. It shows a full access road that can accommodate 2 vehicles passing, as well as a 60-space parking facility that is a paved parking facility, as well as the field and any of the amenities that go along with that. That would be a lighted parking area, including irrigation and any of the needs that the school may have for that field. Now, the real change in scope was demonstrated by the school administration and the athletic program. Those needs, because this field is used for multiple tournament play, for varsity play, there would be parents, coaches, and multiple users attending the events that occur in that field. They didn't feel that the layout proposed in the original feasibility study would be sufficient to keep them whole in terms of the way they function and operate on their varsity field. BH+A has had an opportunity to review the cost estimates, which I also have here, by CDM. And that cost range, depending on whether it's a bituminous parking lot or a gravel parking lot, ranges from $855,000 to $919,000. The original feasibility study by BH+A is clearly very low from the field standpoint. That range, based on CDM's estimate, would have been about $260,000. The lion's share of the cost increase, the incremental change, results from what the school needs to continue to use that field to meet its programming needs, which means the drive that can support 2 ambulances in the event of a collision, a parking facility that supports the programming needs of that field, the irrigation system, and the lighted parking area. All of those are over $700,000. So that's the change, the incremental change. It was, yes, an estimate that was very low as well, but most importantly, a very significant change in the scope of the project.
If you look at the bottom, $200,000 in contingency and other things that wouldn't have been put in an estimate for just putting in a field.
No, that contingency would have been part of the overall project contingency. Yes.
And so that's where we're comparing numbers, pulling one out of a line item and one as a total line item.
Correct.
Mr. Chairman, could I just interject one item? As the board may be aware, something that had arisen that I felt was erroneous and since your last meeting, and I thought I should clarify it for the record. As the board may be aware, the local newspaper in the past week reported that the existing parking area for the varsity soccer field is merely a dirt parking area, which of course, any of us who have been there recognize that it's asphalt, and it has 60 to 75 spaces on it. So we're not replacing a dirt parking area with an asphalt one. It is an existing asphalt lot. I'm not certain who they spoke to clarify that, but they did not speak to anybody here in the town administration. So I just wanted to clarify that it is apples and apples, not as represented, unfortunately, and suggestive that this is not equivalent.
Mr. Patterson?
And I want to mention that it isn't just the school athletic program that uses that field. The rec center program, there's a tremendous number of recreational soccer activities that occur just as community activities. I know my children have played on that field numerous times.
Right.
And so there are a lot of parents that need to come to watch those games. And there's a good deal of congestion that goes along on any given Saturday or Sunday. So, you know, I think the change in scope was warranted. It was somewhat naive to assume that you could put a simple little field in there like that without the appropriate infrastructure to support the programs that are going to be played on that field.
And I appreciate you saying that, because I believe that this is a recognition of the diligence on the part of the town to make sure that the program that's proposed is in fact meeting the needs of the school. And I don't think there's any question that this is what the school needs to have its programming remain intact, but it's different than what was originally discussed with the site engineer.
And not just school, but school and community.
Yes.
Thank you.
Now, keeping in mind that when the board considered the sites and narrowed from 5 to 4 to 2 to 1, you really focused your discussion on the high school property. So given that, the town manager and I and the staff have continued to take a look at what the options are. And one of the options that did not advance to the final phase 2, which did not benefit from a cost estimate, is the Site 4, which is up beyond the lacrosse field in the back of the property. It's difficult to see from this site because this is a focused discussion. I can take you back to that if you need to see that again on the site feasibility study. But that would be a site that's a relatively level area. It's an area that the working group took a very deep look at. It's an area that was evaluated in phase 1 but didn't make it to phase 2. It's a level area in the back of the high school property that's basically astride the Old Campus Drive road. Old Campus Drive is a private road with an open space parcel around it. The open space parcel comes right along the edge of Old Campus Drive with a width of 7 to 10 feet, which means even if it were a public drive, there's no direct access from the high school property. So in order to access the flat area, which is really at the end of the red line here, and this is just a schematic to demonstrate for you what that site might look like, is a flat area that could accommodate up to a 20,000 square foot building. You would have to traverse from Gifford Street across the moraine and that kettle hole topography that's very familiar. It's one of the reasons the field is so expensive to construct in that location. It requires drainage and road construction is expensive. So we asked the town Deputy Director of Public Works to take a look at it, as well as the Conservation Department. Peter provided a very rough cost estimate of about $785,000 to construct the road. Peter, you can talk a little bit about how he came to that number, but that's a working number that's based on quantities and recent work. And then the Conservation Department has taken a look out there. There is wetland habitat. Those are not certified vernal pools, but it is an area where there's a possibility there may be some accommodations that would have to be made to cross an area that could have some wetland habitat. So again, every site, no perfect site. They all have challenges, but we wanted to give you all an opportunity to hear kind of the path we've been going down and some of the information that we have. Happy to take any questions. All this information is in your packet. And the last page is really where we are going and board needs to help us, help you at this point. The Finance Committee has approved gratefully $300,000 to continue advancing the project. That really was identified as about a third of what was originally estimated for full design. What that third could accomplish is, and these estimates are based on Joel Barman's recommendations for what you might need to fund architectural services at these levels. So for schematic design, final site evaluation and project management, the total architectural design is 15% of the total project at $115,000. $50,000 for geotechnical and site survey, $45,000 for project management fees, and that's about 15% of the project management, and then $50,000 for contingency, for a total of $260,000. Now, that contingency would have to include any additional site analysis that the board may consider, so that number may need to go up depending on how many sites you think you need to investigate, how deep of an investigation you think you need to conduct. So I think there's a comfort level of $300,000 can generally get you there if town meeting is so inclined to support that. And at the bottom of the page is just an interrelationship graph that demonstrates some of the key things that need to occur in order for the town to be in a position to have more information at the November town meeting, as there appears to be an expectation to have. The site selection is dependent on the award of an owner's project manager. We won't bring an owner's project manager on board until we know where we're asking them to work. That process can proceed ahead of that, but those need to really come into alignment, and that's why I've kind of connected the dots a little bit here. The owner's project manager has a responsibility under Chapter 149, the Procurement Act, the Bid Act, construction laws, to review the architect's RFP. So you need to have the owner's project manager on board before you issue the request for proposals for an architect. Under our practices, our historic practices, any building committee that might be established for the purposes of overseeing a senior center building project generally at least has an opportunity to view that RFP. They also participate in the selection process, so there's an interrelationship there as well. And then finally, the architect selection, you need to have the architect selected in order to direct them to proceed with work and have a schematic design occur. And that we need to happen over the course of the summer. Very heavy volume of workload for both the board and the staff that we need to oversee that. Possible, but requires a very careful, close monitoring of all the timeframes associated with that and some decision points. That's the sort of the general overview, and I know Julian is happy to weigh in and Peter's here if there's anything more you'd like to ask.
Ms. Moran?
I have a question for Peter. With respect to the slide that's up right now, what would be the elevation and topography of that new proposed road? Because I know many a winter I've come down Old Campus Drive, I've kind of stopped in the middle and slid right to the end. So I'm a little bit concerned about particularly, seniors or anyone with a road that might be difficult in the winter.
Yeah, actually, I'll take the mic and I'll walk over to the slide. As you can see, for the beginning of the roadway here, well, that's not any better too much either. The beginning of the roadway, the elevation there climbs from right about, it looks like a 30 or so off, actually that's a 60 there, and it goes up to, it goes down to 40, and then it goes back up to 70. So it's about a 60, goes down to a 40, comes up to 70. Those two areas right in this area here, it's like that's like a saddle kettle hole area here, would be splitting the road coming right through the middle of it. So that's a 30 to 40-foot drop right in that area.
Yeah.
And then it goes back up another 30 feet. So what you'd want to do is, what we allowed for, to put a roadway in that, is we made it a double-wide roadway, typical two-way roadway, lighted, but you'd want to have drainage, adequate drainage on that roadway, so you wouldn't get stormwater or freezing up on the road. So, yeah, that's it's a steep area.
And, I mean, you estimated, I think, what, about just roughly, was it around 700, give or take?
Yeah.
And it seems to me that the only reason we're even giving this, another look, would be to save exactly that money on the field costs.
Yep.
So I'm just not sure whether this site is really even worth looking at beyond, what our original recommendation was.
One couple of comments that I want to bring out on this is, we assumed approximately 800 feet of roadway, not knowing where a building would be sited. It would be sited up, that's basically the flat area over here that you have to work with. And then it starts to drop down into that low area. You'd want to stay out of that if it's wet, if there's wetlands, if there's any kind of, anything to do down there with the Conservation Commission. You want to stay out of that jurisdiction. However, what would happen is this roadway coming in here and working through the top of the saddle going back up, that would pull, if there was suspect areas down here that were wet, that would pull the site into a permitting. You'd have to permit that area going through the roadway.
Which is an entirely different additional cost.
Well, what I wanted to bring out, though, is that they did work in an area up here at the top level area, and stayed 100 feet out of that wet area there, and was able to contain that stormwater on site without affecting the lower areas. Basically, the building site would not affect the wetland areas, as long as they were able to contain that water and put it into the ground right there without having to shed down into this area. You'd want to put adequate drainage coming down this area as you get into this low area, and then starting on this area going back up. You'd want to minimize the impact right at that low area right there that would go off on both sides. But what this would do, looking at the estimate, is gave allowances for all the utilities. Gave allowances for the water, the wastewater, the electric, the gas, and the drainage. The electric, this is basically utilities that will go to the building. It's basically up the driveway, but it'll bring it to the building, so the building will have the utilities ready to go. But the electric, our previous experience working with Eversource and NSTAR is that they need to come out to the site to design to see what they need for electrical needs up there for a building of this size. They did that with the water treatment facility, and they've done it with other facilities that we've worked at. So I put in a high number for that area, whatever they need for if they need, whatever they need for transformer pads or what have you.
Would a number like that be in the building plans numbers also?
Yeah, so some of the items that were in that cost estimate would be also duplicated into the building. So for instance, if you're clearing and grubbing just that access road, it's a strip that would be 40 feet wide. But if you were clearing and grubbing the access road and then doing the whole site out back here, clearing and grubbing that through a building, it would be a reduced price, because one company's coming in here and doing all that work instead of just doing one little small area and getting out. There's more work in there for them.
Follow up. You mentioned utilities, and I'm very familiar with that area, just having kids in high school, and also when I was in West Falmouth. That's just a notorious dead zone, absolutely no cell phone ability. I just wonder whether that might transfer into some problems with computer access,
Okay.
the moraine effect and all of that. So, I'm just throwing that out there. I don't know if you have any knowledge about that.
Honestly, that's a good question. Haven't looked into that for.
Are you using cable to get over?
You would?
Right. I mean, you wouldn't be using Wi-Fi to get computer service into the building.
Into that.
Right.
It would all be underground. All these utilities were based on being underground.
Underground,
All the electric,
okay.
all the utilities underground. As far as cell phone usage or anything like that, where the tower would ping off of, yeah, that'd have to be looked at. But
Okay.
Ms. Buffett?
It seems to me we can't have a discussion without having additional funds. each site, and I think we've said this or we're aware of this, it makes no difference. As on the site, you can't have one free and clear. If you need a road, you need a field, you need to replace. You're taking something from each one of these sites. And I think it's a point in saying that whatever our prices are on each one of the sites that we had looked at previously when Heather was doing this, each one of them, there is something extra. And my comment, when we talked about it a week ago, was there's $1 million that really isn't going to the senior building. It's the location of Brick Kiln is costing an extra $900,000. This area that we're looking at looks to me like there would be more costs as this project would continue. I think somewhere it just has to be accepted there's additional charges in any one of these sites. And the one that I didn't think there would be additional charge was the school administration, because I thought that field or that baseball park, and I see children playing out there, that had to be replaced somewhere else in town, so it's another charge. So each one of them have got something that, as we look at the bottom line, you simply add $1 million for either a road or what kind of a field it's going to be, where the location. I haven't seen anything that is not going to not have an extra $1 million.
And that was the reason I asked them to get some more information about this site, about Site 4, because if it is $1 million, no matter where we go, then we can make our decision based on something else.
Because
if it's $1 million compared to 500, and this is where, the number we have here is 785, but if part of that's a sewer main allowance, the sewer main is built into the building plan. If it's electrical of $125,000, that's already built into, you had to do that for the building. And so that's already $200,000 of the 785 that we know we've covered in building the building.
Within it.
And so that's where I want to really make sure we're looking at saying, maybe the road is only additional $400,000. Then I'm going to look more carefully at saying, well, that's an option that means we could start doing this building right after, 2 years earlier, because we don't have to get a field in place, and we can actually get the senior center to move forward. If it's only, $300,000 to $400,000 to do that road in total, as opposed to the $900,000 for the field, and we have to wait 2 years.
I think it's the elevation of the road. It isn't simply,
Right?
I think it's the elevation of going up and down and up again is another issue for me.
Okay. I think what we're doing on our agenda tonight is what questions do we have, what more information do we want to get from our consultant to be able to move forward and make a decision on the site? Sam?
Well, I would like the architect as part of this $300,000, the relook of the conceptual design and the site, to come back and look at those costs and revisit them and see whether we have some savings, right? From the fact that there's some duplication in the costing, right?
So having the consultant that we had before look at Peter's cost and see if there is some savings within the road building.
I think that's the first step.
Okay.
And I think the other thing I'd like to do is just challenge them to go back and give us a facility that falls within the $10 million total cost range, and see whether there's not some option to scale back something somewhere, and get us into the neighborhood of what we originally anticipated was going to cost the town.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
Could I perhaps interject one thing? The board will recall that one of the sites that you moved away from when you looked at the high school was a school administration building site. And in the report, portions of which Heather was showing on her PowerPoint, there was one option for that site, which was a standalone building, essentially accessed off Sandwich Road. And that was not fully explored, in my opinion, by the architect, but it could involve shared parking along with the school administration building and may well not need to impact that existing field. But that was not fully explored. A couple of us discussed that possibility. You can see the layout there on the right, maximized, that's 180 spaces, which is extraordinary. And of course, one of the approaches of the planning board and others is to land bank parking, because one can easily overbuild parking areas. Particularly, one of the beauties of this site is you could share parking.
Right.
And that was not explored in this option. I think it's slide number, I think it was maybe number 42, showed another option on this site, because there is a flat area to the west of the existing ball field, where the architect very briefly looked at siting the building. And again, the parking layout was all done on the existing field, but there was no sharing that was considered. It might have been 43 or 4. Yeah, that's not quite it. I know there's one in there that shows. I think he called it option 4 on the school admin site, but it was in the 40s. I think it was one of the slides numbered in the 40s. 42, perhaps? No, 43.
44, 45.
Just take one at a time, if you would.
It's high school.
Okay, I think I apologize, but I would, that's about as close as it gets. But as you can see, it, on the lower sketch, there is a very large area between Sandwich Road and where that baseball, softball field exists. And it's a fairly flat area, which could have shared parking, not needing to connect the buildings, 2 standalone buildings. And I know there's a slide somewhere that shows that concept. And that may be something that this board might wish to have further explored, that might not need to take a field out of play and could result in the utilization of that site. But again, that would be up to the board if you'd want to have that looked at. Again, that was one of the sites that was fairly early dismissed because of the suggestion that there couldn't be any sharing of the building at all. And so we pretty much walked away from it, in my recollection, as a standalone building site also. But I think there's potential for shared parking there.
I think we also walked away from the site because the Council on Aging and when they were looking at sites, really was strongly pushing that they desire to be in the geographic center of the town, as opposed to the downtown center of the town. And I think their preference was to be in the high school area.
Yeah.
And I think they voiced that fairly strongly. I think there are certainly other views out there, but that certainly has been their view all along, is that the high school area is where they would prefer. But I do think we're now in a position where we have to back up a little bit and say, well, there are some other considerations that, that site might be great, but if we can't get it done on that site, let's get it done where we can get it done. And I think to look at this site again with some of those questions might be valid, in addition to having the consultant compare the road, analyze the road costs. Ms. Moffett?
To direct this to the town manager, is what you were saying is that you could have a standalone building on the administration property with the field not being changed, with that area.
I think that's the question he's saying we should ask, is...
I raised it, and the consultant felt that he did not want to explore that further, because there, as you can see, the layout that's shown on the slide up there is just totally using the softball field. It's using relatively little of the existing parking area for the current school administration building. And my suggestion is that a significant amount of that existing space could be reutilized That's not shown on that sketch. It's merely 180 new parking spaces in the outfield of the softball diamond. And I think there's some potential for creativity there if the board would like that to be explored. I think it was slide number 44.
I even think it's worth exploring.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, I don't think I could.
I'm not sure where it would go, but the cost of a softball field is very different than the cost of the varsity soccer field. It is a very different field that we're looking at as opposed to the premier high school soccer team that we have in town. Needs to play on a field that represents the quality of play, our top-level high school kids, as opposed to a softball field that is going to be used on a rec department. I just think that we couldn't replace it with the same kind of field, with the soccer field with something that we just clear and put down. But the softball, we might not have to go with the $900,000 cost. Yeah.
Well, I like Julian's idea of challenging the architect to take another look at that site, because, he's thinking in terms of what are the maximum number of cars that need to be accommodated. Well, when would that take place? Only during some peak activity, when it may be that the school administration building is essentially shut down. It'll be in the evenings, right? And I think if you look at essentially making that parking as an extension to the existing parking in that school administration building facility, there's a potential to meet the parking needs without consuming the softball field. I don't know whether it can be done, but I think we should pursue that as an option to be explored. See what falls out.
Ms. Brand?
I know that there are members of the Council on Aging here, and I would just like maybe Jim to refresh us a little bit on the focus group on the administration building, or whether it's worth taking a look at this.
Jim Beer, Council on Aging. I would encourage you to think about the public forums that we have. It's not just the Council on Aging that's really interested in going out to the high school. But we had several public forums to get the public input on this project. And I think that if you go back and you look at the tapes, you probably could get a chance to play them again. I think you'll see that the overwhelming public comment about this site was negative from a traffic perspective, from the possibility of building again in an area that's intensely developed in T-Ticket. So our Council on Aging position came from the fact that we wanted to be in a centrally located area geographically for ease of people to get there, but it also came out of the public forum and what we thought was a very clear mandate from our people that participated in that, that this was not a desired site. So it was really a combination of those two things, and it's been a while since we had those public forums, so it's easy to kind of go and go off in a different direction, but I would encourage you to think about those, because I know you were all there, and try to remember some of those comments that came out during that thing. And I'm not saying that we don't want to take another look at this, but I do want to encourage you to think about the fact that we went through this process to get all this public input and to try to encourage people to come to these public forums to tell us what they thought. I just would encourage you to take that into consideration as you go forward.
It was fairly passionate, the way it was stated.
It was
also.
passionate. And many of us are passionate about this project, and I think you know that I am. When I came into this thing, I was asked to come on board the Council on Aging to help with the senior center. And the more I got involved in it, and the more that I saw the importance of what this program does, the more passionate I got about this project. And it shows. And all of us who are involved in this are passionate about it. And we just want to make sure the town does the right thing, and we want to make sure that we listen to our citizens and what they tell us.
And just to follow up, what What is the committee's view on this Old Campus Drive possible site?
The real advantage that we see to this site is future potential. You know, we know that we're going to have, at some point, a new building.
Pardon me, I'm talking about
I
Old
do.
Campus Drive. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, go ahead.
And what I'm saying is that what our vision is for a new senior center isn't just the building. You know, it's an environment that allows us to have potential outdoor activities. And if you go to a lot of senior centers, you see this, that a lot of the activities are outside. They have garden spaces, they have walking trails when it's available. Obviously, in an urban area, it's not available. We have the opportunity here to do that, to create a real environment for the people that use the facility, not just to be inside. And that outdoor space, is a real benefit. And, it may be that if we invest the money in the road to get to that site, then there are other opportunities out there. Right now, that whole back part of the high school is landlocked, essentially. And there may, the map's not up here, I don't know, I keep looking over there. There may be other opportunities up there once we get there, beyond just the senior center and what goes on there in that parcel. So, we really want to look to the future. We don't know what our programs are going to be in 20 years, but we would like to have the opportunity to have enough elbow room so that we can accommodate those programs. And I think that site provides us with some of that.
So just so I'm clear, it seems that on behalf of the committee, you're saying that site may actually be preferable to the Brook Hill Road site.
When the working group, there are two things in play here. There's the site working group, which I chaired, and there's the Council on Aging. When I was representing the site working group, which is now no longer in existence, I represented the viewpoint of the site working group, and we were told to give you 3 recommendations, which we did. And
the direction you were actually given was very clear not to give us one recommendation that we would either have to agree with or disagree with. But it was much easier for them to come up with 3 and leave it up to us to decide, which is the reason why. I think they may have strong feelings, but they were not asked to give a recommendation.
Right. So we weren't able to, the funding wasn't there to look at all 4 sites at the high school, which might have been the best way to go from the Council on Aging standpoint, because we were always focused on that central location. And the consultant did identify 4 sites at the high school, but we knew that we needed to evaluate the administration building. And so we were really limited in what we could look at the high school. So those 2 were selected by the working group. So that's a different viewpoint that you got than strictly from the Council on Aging. I think from the Council on Aging standpoint, we like the opportunity to have future alternatives and not being locked into a set parcel, because if we did get to Brooklyn Road, or if we got to this site, or to most of the other sites that we talked about in town, that's it, that's your scope, and that's all you're really going to have. Whereas if you go out to this site, to the Old Campus Drive site, for lack of a better description, you open up other opportunities and alternatives. Previous presentation. So we're just trying to do what's best for the town going forward.
Other questions? Yeah, Ms. Moffett?
I think, I hope you understand the realization when it struck that to move the field while the design was on Brick Hill, which I absolutely approved of and thought all of it was, but to go from $175,000 to replace the field to $900,000 was really a shock. I mean, it was a big surprise to the point that, well, now there's one line item that has increased. by a great amount. But as we look at each place, there seems to be something that we're still going to spend more money than what we anticipate. So I think the issue with me is, I like the brick kiln, I just wish there wasn't an extra 900,000 attached to it. And I think the point was also made this evening, that that's a darn good field that's being replaced. I mean, it isn't a ratty field, and it's not full of rocks, and we're gonna make it better. I mean, it's really a good field. The next sentence that you need to put into all your decision-making is every site we look at, there's an issue. It's a field. And so, in all of that, I agree with people thinking, let's have the new place at the high school. I understand that. But there's also something about the town of Falmouth having their senior center within their eye shot when they're going down Main Street or they're continuing toward East Falmouth. There's something about those buildings. And I know that's a traffic area that is Sandwich Road. I understand all that. And that is difficult. But there is something about, as the town is making its plans, what is happening as we are going east, should the senior center be part of that planning? Because the planning of the town is in a 5-year span. So I have a lot of different thoughts because of the money. I thought the site was perfect. I thought that sounds good, but as more information is given, which is just exactly what we need, is we're digging up a pretty good field to put the site on brick kiln. And the road going up and down bothers me about people driving on that. So there's something that makes each one of the sites not 100% in my mind as I had thought before I heard 900,000.
There's no easy solution.
So what, are there any more questions we want to get to the consultant to get the answers for, so we can continue our discussion? I don't think questions for Mr. Vieira tonight, but questions that we can get the consultant to answer for us. Are there any other things, or do we think we have a pretty good direction as to, once we get those answers, we can then proceed?
Well, I think we need to know what is the height of that road that is going to go up and down. I mean, as you showed, I mean, it's not flat coming in there going all the way over. I think we need to know the height of that. How wide can that be?
Okay.
Well,
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, I agree with Becky. I think maybe the wording could be asking the consultant to, as each site is evaluated, what are the constraints or the non-constraints of getting to the site in terms of distance or elevation or weather-related issues? I mean, if it goes down and goes up again, what is that, how might that affect driving on a road like that? Being able to answer those questions. Accessibility, road accessibility.
And there may be some questions either of consultant or Mr. McCartney as to whether, could we even legally build a road there? Is the grade so steep that it would be a road that we'd say is a lower class road? Well, we fit with town regulations for a road.
I mean, yeah, you could, Peter McConaughey, Deputy Director, you could build a road in that area. One of the areas that we're looking at is the entrance to that, to see the distance, to how far that was away from Old Campus Road. You want to have a good 125, 150 feet, and there is, it's tight, there is. You'll have to put some landscaping on towards the ball field side to be able to buffer that, but it can be built there. One good thing about that entrance road there is the school is right adjacent to that, so the speed limit in that area within so many feet of the school is 20 miles an hour during school and 30 miles an hour outside of school. So it's not that, you don't have the high traffic speeds.
Okay. Any other questions we want to get to the consultant for you, Mr. Patterson?
Well, I know Heather has a comment.
Yeah, when you're done.
I guess I wanted to challenge the architect. Jim's talked about how we should be thinking about expanding programs, but I'd also like to think about how we might phase this construction. So if we feel like the initial cost is something that might be too much of a hurdle for a May referendum, is there a logical, maybe first phase with the idea that in the future, as programs develop and the need becomes obvious, we can go back and say, no, we'd like to go ahead and finish what we thought. I think, I'd like to ask them to take a look at, is there a piece of this that could be left off that would save that $1 million, that would let us put in the road or move the field, whatever worked out to be the best option?
That won't be for this consultant. That's what, and Jim and I will make this presentation at town meeting floor. That's what the $300,000 that we're going to spend this summer is going to do, is to look back at what are our needs, what kind of size building, can we build it in 2 phases? And that's going to be for the architect and the project manager, not for the consultant on our choosing our site. I'm really looking forward that we can, how quickly can we effectively choose a site, because once we have the site, then we can get the project manager, then we can get the architect, then we can get those questions answered, but by the right people, not by, I think, this organization. Ms. Harper?
I just want to put this in a terminology that I think we can communicate effectively to the consultant. And just to Sam's point, the project that was evaluated was a 15,000 square foot building with 5,000 square feet possibly left unfinished. You certainly could look at something smaller that could grow to bigger in the schematic design phase. What I think I'm hearing you say about the Site 4 is that you actually want to reintroduce Site 4 for a Phase 2 analysis. You don't necessarily need all the traffic studies. Those were essentially done for the lacrosse field site. But you would like to have a cost estimate for that, as well as a design for the road that would include the slope and safety conditions of that road, including weather. And then for the school administration building, you're asking for him to sharpen his pencils from a design standpoint to determine whether a freestanding building could be accommodated there with sufficient parking on site without impacting the current field.
And to add to that, for informational purposes, is the future roundabout at that intersection. And whether, I don't know if it makes a difference or not, but at least it should be included in the future plan.
We can certainly share the McMahon report.
Is that the consensus of the board that give it in that direction?
Well put.
Thank you.
Great. Right, thank you.
We have hands in the audience.
Yep. If you have to come to the podium.
Mary Little in T-Ticket. If I understand you to say that you're going to reassess the school administration building, is it your intent to look more closely at the traffic data than what was given before? Because there were, as Jim said, at the prior meetings, T-Ticket members and others thought that the confluence of T-Ticket Highway and Sandwich Road was just bad for the area, if you cited it there. So just asking if that's going to have a more in-depth analysis.
I think that's well worth considering, because that was the community's outcry.
Concerns.
I don't think it's going to be something we're going to be asking the consultant. I think we need to narrow what we're asking them to do, but it's something that as we consider it, we need to keep that in mind constantly. If there's a insignificant cost difference between these two places, I would think the traffic would outweigh anything. If there's a huge cost difference between the two, we're then going to have to try to balance out, well, I understand there's a traffic issue there, but if it costs half as much to do it there, we need to know that too.
I just note that there was a traffic report done for that site that is included in the final report. It's online. It was sent to every town meeting member that has an email address with the town. And there, we will provide the consultant with a copy of the McMahon report, which was most recently presented to the Board of Selectmen, so they have the benefit of the additional traffic study and long-range plan and recommendations for that intersection.
And I expect them to include that information as they're doing the analysis.
Right, but I'm not suggesting that there'll be additional traffic study.
No, just what's there.
Yeah.
It's online, you said?
This report? Yes, it is. It's on the Selectmen's page at the bottom of their links.
Thank you.
And on the Council on Aging.
Next item is an update on the status of our plastic bag ban. Mr. Suso?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The board has a copy of a draft information piece on the plastic bag ban, or as it's also perhaps more positively called the Bring Your Own Bag bylaw. And we are working with the Chamber of Commerce. We've had a few meetings on the implementation of this already. The cutover date is in August of this year, and Michael has agreed to work with us and do a mass emailing to members of the Chamber, reminding them of this cutover. We'd also give them a copy of the Town Meeting Article 31, which you have a copy of, which is the actual line and verse of what was adopted by town meeting. And talking with Michael, he's also assisting us in including an information piece in the Chamber's annual spring-summer booklet, which they put out, which is made heavy use of by a number of visitors in the community. So we would like to proceed on that basis and welcome any additional thoughts by the board.
Ms. Moffett?
Well, when I read it, I definitely can bring my own bag. But when I go to the grocery and I'm either taking the paper bags out, I have a dozen of those. So, I mean, I'm carrying an awfully lot of bags. So I was thinking, how many large bags? I mean, I just think the public should think about, you've got to bring your own, but you know what you do on a weekly basis and how many bags you carry in your shopping cart to your car, to your house, and into your kitchen where you're putting it away. And I want some advice on what kind of a bag or bags I'm going to need. I absolutely agree with this, with not using plastic bags. I agree with that. I just want some assistance from people that are involved in this to say to me, this is what you need to have when you go to the grocery. And that was what I didn't really see here.
Mr. Chairman, you make an excellent point, Selectman Moffett. One of the things that we're going to have to emphasize that I think we're a little bit lacking on this piece is that while it's called euphemistically a bring your own bag bylaw, you have the choice of paper. And right now, if you go to many stores in Falmouth, they say paper or plastic. And starting August 6th, you won't be able to say or plastic. They'll just have to say, if you have not brought a bag along, they'll give you paper. And I can go and Stop and Shop now and get paper bags as opposed to paper or plastic. So that'll just only be one choice. It'll be paper or bring your own bags. And a number of stores, Whole Foods has done it for years, Trader Joe's and others, where you can buy bags. I think more and more stores are doing it for those consumers who prefer to bring their own bags, but it's not mandatory. You can always use paper bags, and that is fully consistent with this bylaw that was adopted, was that you utilize paper bags. It's just integral handle plastic bags will be banned. So we need to emphasize that paper continues to be a viable option under this bylaw, as well as bags that we might purchase and want to bring with us to the grocery store.
Thank you.
Mr. Patterson?
I would just hope that we could put a nice positive spin and talk about the benefits of what we're actually asking people to accommodate here. And, just encourage. I think bring your own bags, not a bad slogan, right? But we need to include why it's important for the people to do that. I know my wife has become very disciplined about carrying her own bags that fold apart. She has it all in a small little block about this size, but she comes home, says, come on, help me with the groceries, and I'm carrying in 6 bags that she's already carried to the store and filled up. And I think people can get into that kind of a routine just as she's already done. But I think in terms of visitors to the town, there are going to be a lot of people that are going to go to the to the store the first day they arrive, and go shopping, and all of a sudden the normal method of carrying groceries home is not going to be available to them. And, as I said, I just would hope that through the chamber we can put as much positive spin on this as possible.
Thank you. Any comment? All right, next item is the discussion of the Commonwealth Community Compact.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. This is an item that we'd had some discussions at the strategic planning level with members of the board, as you may recall, this past summer. This is a relatively new program put in place by the Governor Baker's administration, and I did provide to the board some summary materials on what is available. Each community can select up to 3 what they call best practice areas, and as noted in the materials, the benefit to the town is that if you engage in this process with the state, then you can potentially have some additional points for future grants. No guarantees there, of course, and they're willing to assist in some of these best practiced areas. I have brought to the board a suggestion for 2 areas. One is one that Heather and I looked at along with Finance Director Jennifer Petit, which is a financial management best practice. Again, it's in the materials that the board received relating to the budget document, and that's an area where we continue to evolve and look and embrace new ways to be more effective in communicating budget information to the public. Jennifer has suggested, and I concur, that that would be a helpful best practice area to consider. The second one is one that I proposed to my fellow town managers in Mashpee, Bourne, and Sandwich. And that is a regional best practice consortium because we all share in a border with Joint Base Cape Cod. And while I wouldn't purport to speak for my colleagues totally, I can just tell you that we've had very positive response. I've met with them on multiple occasions about this, and we feel that there are some common areas where our communities can benefit in working together on best practices involving Joint Base Cape Cod in areas yet to unfold. And that is the second proposal. To my surprise, I learned from the state that there are relatively few regional best practices practice areas created, so we would be among the first handful of ones that would be proposed on that basis. And I bring this to the board for your consideration. If the board would be agreeable, we can pursue the paperwork to make those 2 best practice areas happen. We are able in the future to affiliate with additional best practice areas. The message to me was that communities are encouraged not to have more than 3. So again, I bring 2 to the board for your thoughts and consideration, and welcome the board's direction, further direction on that.
Ms. Flynn?
Well, I like both of those ideas, the regionalization of services and also the budget. Gavin Newsom, who's the mayor of San Francisco, wrote a book, maybe you've read it, on how to make the budget more available and explainable to the people in the city. And it was an amazing process. And I thought, it's not just going on the website. There's a way that you have to really educate people to understand what the budget is. I think that would be a great thing, because I think people here would love to have a better understanding of the budget. So I think both of those are good.
And this dovetails nicely. I know the chair designated me to meet with one of our community members, Troy Clarkson, who had a lot of, I think, very helpful suggestions in terms of communicating the community policies to residents in businesses. And we've since met about that and had an interesting discussion. I think this is a nice further step to further those efforts.
Any other discussion?
Okay.
Agreed with both comments.
Yep.
I think that they're excellent choices for those 2. I wouldn't mind find a third one, so I encourage us to look at it in the next few weeks and think, there's some that jump out at me, but I think, well, actually, we're way ahead with that And one of them would be the comprehensive water resource management. But, well, we're already putting a lot of energy into that one, so maybe that doesn't make sense to go. But there were some others that I was also intrigued by. But I think these two choices are a great place for us to really be putting some efforts. Mr. Patterson?
Well, I mean, I would just suggest, having kind of been through a similar process in rolling out a quality management system in a private firm, you really want buy-in by the members of that department that are going to be affected by this. So I would hope that, we might tempt them, but I think it really needs to be a commitment on the part of the staff to really take this kind of an initiative seriously. So I want to see some ownership in it. I'm glad to hear that Jennifer is willing to take on this budget document, particular area of the compact.
I just wanted to comment on the water quality management outreach, because I don't know how many of you were on the board at the time, but this was a few years ago. I think this was when even Bob Rittenauer was still here. The idea was that if we really want to make this successful, we have to find a way of engaging the community in this. And so what we did is we did bring in Consensus Building Institute and had some community meetings. There were 3, and they were scheduled far apart, like 3 months apart. They weren't one right after the other. And as I recall, the first meeting had about maybe 45 people. The second meeting, which was a couple of months later, had well over 100. And the third meeting had over 200 people. By that time, the way it was laid out, people got to know about it, and they became engaged in it. And as you notice, from that very day going forward, there's never been a lot of pushback from the community on the wastewater plants, because they learned about it, then they found out how they could stay in a learning mode, that as new things came about, the meetings that Julian had when he came, and all those public meetings that were held at T-Ticket and elsewhere. It was but it was an intentional rollout of that, and it worked. And we always said too, it can't be the selectmen who do it, because they don't want to listen to us. They want to listen to other people. They just want to hear what other people say about it. And none of the selectmen were involved in it at all. Even the Water Quality Management Committee wasn't. They were sort of there, but they were not speaking. And it was an interesting experiment. So it's something to think about in terms of rolling things out and how do we get the community more engaged.
Any comments?
Mr. Chairman?
Yep.
What would be the board's preference? Would you want us to begin to pursue the first 2, or to sit tight for a few weeks and come back to the board to see whether you want to supplement it and make it 3?
I think we can do the first 2.
Yeah, I think
And
so.
then we can come back
Get
and
started.
add a third one. Is that too late?
I don't think it's ever too late. If the board would like us to, officially engage the state and mention those 2 that we've
Yeah.
discussed, we can start that process, but I don't want to truncate things prematurely when the board may want to explore another option. Maybe we should just reconsider in 2 weeks and after town meeting, whatever your preference.
I'd focus our efforts on these 2.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, that's fine with me.
I would agree, but I also say that in the mode of a continuous improvement attitude, that, really the town should be looking for other opportunities, whatever seems to actually fit into an area where we really want to take a close look and see whether we can improve our practices, and use this as an opportunity to do that. I mean, all we're going to do is learn from some of the recommendations and the models that are presented as alternatives. And whether we adopt them or not will be our decision in the long run. But I think it should remain a challenge to look for other areas, as you've been doing, quite honestly, in other departments, and see whether it's not a fit for one of these particular areas.
Happy to do so. In the meantime, we will go forward with these 2
Yep.
on behalf of the board then.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Next item is annual appointments of Inspector of Animals. We have 5 different inspectors to reappoint, with all their term expiring on 4/30/2017. Philip G. Lang, Daniel J. Donahue, Alec J. Turner, Chris Anglin, and David Carrigan.
I move approval.
Second?
Motion
Those 5
and a
people
second
for
of
one.
reappointing R5, Inspector of Animals.
Can I ask a question?
Mr. Patterson.
Could somebody tell me what they actually do, what their responsibility is? Because we've got permit forms in here, but none of it actually is a job description, and even in a short form of what people who are inspector of animals actually do as part of their responsibility.
Well, it's a designation that's assigned to particular staff that have many other functions associated with their job. So it could be inspecting a stable, it could be a result of a complaint of a facility, it could be any of the kennels in town, anyone that keeps animals over a certain number, they trigger inspectional requirements, so there's multiple.
Yeah, it's required by state law.
Yes.
That you have inspector of animals. And then when certain situations arise, they get called on.
Correct.
I don't remember all.
These are all DNR officers and health agent.
Yeah.
And so they're already experienced in fulfilling?
Oh, yes, yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, that's
We'll just
enough.
reappoint them.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item is a request for...
Don't think you voted yet.
Oh.
I don't think you
I moved
You're right, we did
approval,
move
but I
in a
guess-
second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Next item is a approved request for off-premise promotional signs for the Falmouth Prevention Partnership. These would be at the police station and at the fire station. And in addition, at Jack and the Beanstalk, at Gosnell, at Cape Cod 5, at Homeport, at Falmouth area churches, at Stop and Shop, at CVS on Scranton Avenue, and at Rite Aid on Main Street. And this is the National Take Back Drugs, Turn in Unwanted Drugs. Take Back Day.
Well, can I speak to it?
Sure.
I'll move approval just to open the discussion.
Second.
And then if I may, this really fits in with our whole opiate coalition. The connection between use of prescription drugs as a lead into using opiate drugs is very well established. They say 80% of people who become addicted to opiate drugs illegally distributed started off on prescription drugs, it's late. And I just think that this initiative is a great way to kind of get people to look through their medicine cabinets, and here's an opportunity for you to dispose of it without flushing it down the toilet or throwing it into the trash. There's no questions asked, it's just a repository where you can drop it off. But I think the more publicity we can give to this initiative, and even from an educational perspective of kind of educating the public to be concerned about this particular problem. I talked to Karen Cadera, I said, how are things going in the Human Services Department? And it was sort of an invitation for her to tell me about whatever their current concern is. And she said one of the problems that they're faced with repeatedly is hoarding. Well, this kind of goes along with hoarding, right? People just not bothering to clean their medicine cabinets out, and then the medication's falling into the wrong hands. And so I think this initiative is an excellent one. And I think that the signs that they're asking for are really modest in size and guaranteed to communicate to the public this opportunity. So that's why I was happy to move this approval.
And this is on Saturday, April 30th, from 10 to 2 at the Falmouth Police Station. And I think, as you also stated, not only drugs getting in the wrong hands, but even people flushing it down the toilet is a terrible thing for it to have happen also, because then it gets into our water stream one way or the other, and people, that gets rid of it, or even throwing it in the trash, it still can get burned up and into the air. And so the only way to do it that's really appropriate and safe is to turn it in to the police department.
I volunteered a couple of years doing this at Gus Canty, and there's a great response in this town to this. So, it just seems as if it's just a different organization when it's being sponsored, but Falmouth does respond to this.
Okay. Mr. Patterson.
One other thing that's come up in this coalition is the fact that there has been a sort of a general tendency of physicians to overprescribe painkillers. And sometimes I think people feel like, well, they just need to go ahead and follow the directions, which is take all of this prescription. Well, here's an option. If you really don't need that painkiller, you're recovering, and whatever the surgery was is, the pain is dissipating and you can tolerate a little bit. Well, here's an option for the rest of that prescription. And it's a way of essentially moving it out of somebody possibly addicting themselves and into a proper discarding of that additional medication.
And it's so easy, you just walk in the police department and it's sitting right there. You just put it in and it's gone and that's it. It's pretty easy. Nobody asks you any questions, you just dispose of it.
Okay. Further discussion? Do we have a motion?
We had a motion and a second.
Yeah.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. The ayes have it. All right, and next we have a few more seasonal liquor license or renewals. First is an all-alcohol restaurant for Shuckers. We have them all on the list. Ms. Moffett?
Why is the Shuckers $16.50 and the others are much less?
All alcoholic license is one of our most expensive licenses we have.
And
it was the same as all the other all alcoholic restaurants we did last week. We just inadvertently had left them off the list last week.
Okay, Quick's Hole
That's
is
wine and
the,
malt.
That's just wine and malt, that's not alcohol, all alcohol. There's a difference.
Quick's Hole is,
Taqueria?
is right on the corner?
No.
No, it's up the, okay, because I was trying to think where this is.
But you do raise an interesting question, because I thought that they had actually asked to go to all alcohol, because they wanted to serve
I
margaritas.
thought they did too.
Well, the Quick's Hole that used to be the Lee side is all alcohol.
Right, but this is different.
And
This is the
that's-
talk.
And I just wanted to know where this was.
This is
Quick's Hole.
this is the Quick's Hole Taqueria. This is the place across from Landfall, and they did come and ask for. So we should I'll double check on that.
We approved that.
And we did approve their.
Well, we did approve it, because I remember the margarita piece.
It may
Otherwise,
be
they
a
probably
step one,
wouldn't
step, maybe necessary. We'll check.
We'll check on it.
Okay. So let's hold on the wine and malt alcohol restaurant for. Actually, let's go ahead and. I would suggest we go ahead and approve that, and if we need to amend that, but as opposed to not approving it.
Okay,
Yeah.
in case they need it, yeah.
And I'm going to read them all, and then we can approve them as a lump sum unless
Okay.
we have
All right.
questions. So we also have the common victual license for Quick's Hole Taqueria, an entertainment license for Quick's Hole Taqueria, and a Sunday entertainment for Quick's Hole Taqueria. And just to be aware that both the entertainment and Sunday entertainment, it is an outdoor entertainment license, that they are doing the music outside on their patio. It's one of our 5 places in town that has it. Mr. Patterson?
And I think this is using the standard hours, and could you remind us of exactly what the hours are for when they can actually perform music outside? It's not, we didn't get the information, and I've forgotten just how late
It's
this
usually
is.
midnight, and I'm not sure.
For outdoor entertainment, I think it's actually very different.
Yeah.
I thought it was a 6 to 9 license on outdoor entertainment for the Quick's Hole Taqueria, but I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, okay, well, since it was a sensitive issue when we
They
talked about it.
did it last year, and we have a report, no problems,
Okay.
and it's a lot of fun.
Okay, what,
Any other questions?
no?
I move approval, all 5.
Motion and second. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. Last item before our individual reports is the John Busby retirement allocation. We have a memorandum from Mr. Duffy. Certainly a good deal of investigation's been going into this. One of the concerns is that one possibility that we could be requesting is 50% of a current police officer, which may turn out to be less than what he is currently getting. And so there's been a lot of working in the past trying to make sure we're actually helping him as best we can. If we're going to do anything with the retirement board, it does need to be a special act that the town meeting authorizes us to petition the legislature to do. I think that hopefully there'll still be some more information at town meeting about this. But I certainly think we could go ahead and have a motion to ask town meeting to support Article 25 and to request that the retirement system take favorable action. I'm not sure much more we can do for sure at this point.
Well, if it's a special act in the legislature, I mean, we have to get town meeting to approve that. A special act in the legislature to increase it And I think, I've seen those before. So, it's not asking the retirement board to do it, because we have no jurisdiction over the retirement board. But a special act we can, if town meeting will vote a special act. So what the legal impetus of a special act over the retirement board is, I have no idea.
Right.
So we should check on that.
And we do have options. One option is that we request that the retirement board do what they can. We have no authority to tell them, but we can request.
Right.
And if that's not sufficient, we could then see if town meeting wants to endorse us to file for special legislation.
But isn't there a petition article already on the warrant?
It's very poorly,
No, it's Article
unfortunately, it was not
25.
worded in a way
It's
that
not
actually gives them
worded
anything.
properly.
So if we want to be helpful, we would need to put a positive motion on the floor
Okay.
to one of those two effects. Sam?
Yeah, there is something that bothers me about this, and that so far, we haven't had any confirmation that we've had any direct contact with Mr. Busby. And so somebody's petitioning on his behalf, but we don't have directly from him what the circumstances are, or even what's going to benefit him or make his situation worse. So I'm bothered by the fact that we kind of don't have any direct communication, and should really, before we take an initiative on his behalf. So I hope that somebody could at least give us a contact so that we can reach and talk to him. Secondly, I mean, we could, in the interim, ask the retirement board to review the case, right? And perhaps even have information available to us if they thought they could take some action to help inform whatever decision the town meeting might take.
Well, the reason we're even talking about this, it was a petitioner's article.
Yes.
And we need to take some action on it. And the article came to town meeting, it was written, was not actionable. We could not pass that and have anything positive happen. The way this is written, the motion that we could consider would be to ask the retirement system to take favorable action to increase Mr. Pensions to the maximum possible.
You know, I'm a member of the Barnstable County Retirement Board. I've never seen any requests like that come through. And frankly, I don't believe the PARAC, which is the state organization, even allows it in their bylaws. We should check on that. I don't think they allow retirement boards to make decisions that will increase the retirement of individual members. I don't think that's possible. A special act of the legislature might do it in some way, but I don't think the retirement board has the authority to do it. I've never seen it in my 8 years on the retirement board.
Well, no matter what we were doing with the retirement board, we could only be advisory. There's no way we can be directing them to do anything,
No, the only
because they're
thing
separate
we
from
can
us.
do
We
is
can't
what's allowed
prejudge the
legally.
situation.
And we're not
No.
sure what that is yet.
Yeah.
Whether a special act, which we would have to put on a warrant, and town meeting would have to adopt, would do it or
Right,
not.
and this is where I agree completely with Mr. Patterson. The
Yeah.
first motion, I have no problem without Mr. Busby saying anything. I think it still supports him. To go to a special act point, so without having Mr. Busby step in and say he would like that, I would say,
That's right.
wait a minute, we're going way overboard without input from the person we're talking about.
Who's responsible to get in touch with Mr. Busby?
Smith,
Technically, the petitioner. I know that town council, Frank Duffy, is going to make an effort to reach out to the petitioner
I see.
and seek to have that happen. But we can't make it happen, but we'll encourage it.
Okay, that's okay.
Well, do we have to take action on it tonight? Or can we take action on it, as we, just before town meeting when we meet, as we always do?
The only thing we can't do is take action as a board during town meeting. And if something comes up and there's a discussion and we want to vote one way or another, we have to have done that ahead of time.
But if we
And
get
right
the-
now, I think our motion is
Positive.
Well,
positive.
Yes.
If we get the right answers, we could just we could discuss it in our meeting before town meeting.
Right, I know.
And then we have all the answers, and then maybe we could
That's
make
right.
something more.
Including the possibility of tabling, because we want yet another day, right? Or we'll have to just see what transpires, right?
Okay.
Okay. So I understand, we'll take no action on this tonight.
That's right.
Okay, that's my recommendation.
Individual selectmen's reports.
Sure.
Mr. Patterson?
Well, certainly, I was honored, I think is the right word, to participate in the funeral mass for Deputy Sheriff John Robert Capilla Jr., who is truly a Falmouth hero, and was quite a impressive ceremony, and the recognition that his family got and he got from the state police and our Falmouth police, from neighboring police departments around Cape Cod, and from fire and rescue units. I saw Mashpee there as well. It was a very impressive ceremony, and certainly deserving of the kind of person that he certainly was. And from everybody's testimonies, it was pretty impressive, and was pleased to be able to participate along with my fellow selectmen there and town manager as well. The second thing I wanted to mention is that Julie and I attended a workshop that was actually put on with the organization of Congressman Keating and Representative Mann this morning on ocean acidification. It's a side effect of too much carbon dioxide in the atmosphere that I hadn't heard about. I remember acid rain was a big topic, which is caused by too much carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. It comes down, rain comes down as a dilute solution of carbonic acid, which changes the acidity of various pools and groundwater. Well, now, I guess it's gone beyond that, and oceanic researchers are discovering that the acidity of the ocean is shifting, and also the estuaries are shifting. And it's having a negative impact on shellfish, and early larval stages of even lobster, for instance. This was all brought out in testimony by scientists who are beginning to see the evidence to support this kind of thing. And I just want to tip my hat to Congressman Keating and to Representative Madden for putting this together. There must have been 100 people there, I would say, and testimony from people from all various branches of NOAA, and researchers from Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute and Marine Biological Laboratory. One of the side discussions that came out of it is something we probably should be thinking about, is the use of aquaculture here in town, and possibly putting together a shellfish working group. But one of the things that is mentioned is that there's an awful lot more aquaculture being used, and an attempt to basically mitigate the lower yields that are being experienced now in the way of fisheries, particularly in the shellfish area. So anyway, I just wanted to mention it was a very useful workshop, and one that's really only coming to people's attention in the last 5 years.
Well, it's quite timely, because I know Mr. Suso has started on creating a shellfish working group.
Working group?
Yeah.
I think it's appropriate.
They're creating a committee on it right now.
Oh, and if I may mention one other thing. I'm going to be going up to the Massachusetts State House on Wednesday. This is an initiative that basically has been put together by our local representatives to talk to Speaker DeLeo about the rooms tax. It's been a piece of special legislation we've requested. Most of the towns together have come together to try to ask the legislature to give us the opportunity to use that rooms tax as a source of revenue. Because there are so many units that are now being put into condominiums that are rented out, or in bed and breakfast, or other types of rental units. And we feel like people are avoiding paying their share of the services that their renters actually enjoy. And Speaker DeLeo, I guess, has not been a very welcoming person. And so a delegation of us are going to go up to try to talk to him. And if anybody wants to go up, we would leave here about 9 o'clock on Wednesday. The meeting starts at 11 o'clock that day. We'd meet with him, have a chance to express our concerns and why we think this is a good idea, and put, at least I guess you'd call it, lobbying pressure on him to think about giving us a more open hearing on that potential. So if anybody's interested, let me know. I think Representative Vieira has already provided us with a parking space in the house parking area, so the skids are greased, so to speak.
Well, I wanted to go, but unfortunately I couldn't change the commissioners' meeting from Wednesday. But I will tell you that I have met with Speaker DeLeo 3 times on this matter over the last 6 years. And each time, you know, I've been there with 15 people, with selectmen from the entire Cape, from almost every town on the Cape, and with 5 and 6 people. And even at the road race, remember, he was there in the tent, and he said, "Is she in favor of it too?" So he's very aware of it. I don't know what, the chairman of the Committee on Taxation, who happened to be Jay, can't think of his name, it has to go through that committee. And I think he and the chairman of that committee were never really quite on the same page. Jay Kaufman, that was his name, and I don't remember what district he represents. But I think he was the one that was sort of holding it up at that time. So I wish you a whole lot of good luck, because eventually this thing will happen. It's just a question of when. And they're very much aware of it. They know what the issues are, and it's just getting there at the right time with the right people for that committee to agree to it and take it for a vote. So good luck.
Anyone else?
Give my regrets.
Mr. Suso, Town Manager's Report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The board will recall that at your February 11th meeting, you voted to request of the State Department of Environmental Protection that they convene a public hearing specifically on the Steamship Authority's request for a 401 water quality permit. This relates, of course, to the reconstruction of their terminal building in Woods Hole. The board's request has been affirmed. A representative of the DEP has indicated that the hearing will be held on Thursday, April 14th at 7 p.m. in the Herman Room of the Falmouth Library. So I wanted to advise the board that your request has been acted upon. Also, Interim Building Commissioner Jim Brandolini has begun his regularly scheduled work this past week. All transitions items are moving forward. Also, the board will recall at your meeting last Monday, you heard a summary of the 2 responses to the procurement process on the Spring Bars Road affordable housing proposal. And the review committee has completed their report and analysis and responded back to me. Based upon that analysis, I have determined that the proposal from Affirmative Investments / Falmouth Housing Corporation is the most responsive and responsible to that RFP, and I wanted to bring that to the board's attention here as we going forward into town meeting. As you know, there's a warrant article before town meeting that would authorize this board to move forward with awarding a proposal to allow affordable housing to begin to occur. So all the pieces are in place as the board had fully anticipated, with a wastewater line extension and with the RFP, and very favorable responses as we heard during the past week. And I wanted to note that one entity I found to be most responsive and most responsible to that proposal. And that concludes my report, other than to confirm that I and several staff members will be also making every effort to attend as many precinct meetings as possible from Tuesday through Thursday of this week. Thank you.
If you express appreciation to that review group about how efficiently they were able to make their recommendation, because I think it's very important that we have that decision before town meeting and to be able to report that that's where we're moving forward.
I'm impressed with the speed of that group working to meet all of these requirements, and the town manager to be able to review all very quickly.
We're fortunate with Heather's assistance to have a number of excellent individuals involved in that who worked very conscientiously and thoughtfully in bringing that to closure. So your comments are very well made.
We will be having meetings on Monday and Tuesday of town meeting next week beforehand, and we'll make sure those are posted. I do expect at our next regularly scheduled meeting on the 11th that we will continue the grinder pump policy discussion. I'm not sure we can have a decision by then, but certainly we need to be moving forward quickly with that. Ms. Moffett?
And it's what time before the town meeting?
6:30 on Monday and Tuesday.
Motion to adjourn.
We have a motion, a second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Ayes have it.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Pat Thatcher.
And I'm Margaret Gifford. We're from Sotheby's International Realty.
I was taking some home buyers on a tour the other week, one of my familiarization tours of Falmouth. Brother, this is a gorgeous town we live in.
And we have more shoreline than any other town on the Cape. The gardens have been beautiful, the light is stunning, and the changing seasons bring exquisite color to the marshes.
It is a beautiful place to live.
We are so lucky.
Nestled in a classic New England setting amid 200-year-old elm trees and charming colonial homes, stately sea captains' homes, and charming Cape Cod salt boxes, Shoreway Acres is a graceful blend of Cape Cod's past and present. Shoreway Acres, proud sponsor of Falmouth Community Television.